Hey everybody, welcome back. This is episode 26 of Indie Game Dev Report, a podcast where we typically interview devs, but for this episode I've planned something special. Today we have 4 people other than myself for a roundtable discussion about a whole bunch of different game dev topics. We've got 3 devs from previous episodes, Just Wall from episode 23, Langle, aka Puke7 from episode 24, and Sal from episode 25. We also have a good friend and content creator, Michael Electric, aka The Electric Mindset on Twitch. I think Michael Electric is a great addition to today's discussion because he kind of works as a control variable. Most devs understand how important player feedback is, and since most of what we are covering today is opinion-based, it's awesome to hear from the other side. As devs, we're often too close to things to recognize what players do. Also, Michael does quality assurance and writes in-depth reports for upcoming indie games as a passion-driven hobby. On top of streaming countless games for many hours, he does a great job showing people indie games that they otherwise might not have heard of. I recommend his stream to devs and gamers alike. Before we get into the bulk of this episode, I realized that it's been a whole quarter of a year since my last episode. But during that time, I've relocated and finally have my own space where I can record as often as I'd like. And I'm very excited to get back to things. So if you're on my list of devs to reach out to, I might be reaching out soon. And if you're not on that list, but you'd like to be, head over to Indie Game Dev Report Twitter. In the bio, there's a link to apply for an interview. So please do. So yeah, today we've got a special podcast episode here. We've got a round table. So we've got a few different devs here. One might be jumping in later if we're lucky. And we've got Just Wall, Michael, and Sal. So you've met Just Wall and Sal before on episode 25 and 23. But Michael's new here. So Michael, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself since you're the new person here?
Yeah, so I'm Michael. I'm not a game dev, but I have spent a lot of time playing a lot of games. I primarily stream indie games and obscure games people haven't heard of, but mainly the big reason why I'm probably here is because I created a dev reporting template that is indexed to be efficient to use when you're developing your game and trying to fix bugs, and I put a lot of work into that for a lot of people.
Yeah, do you want to go into some of the people that you've done some work for? I mean, other than myself?
Yeah, so I've done work for Just Wall. I did stuff for you, Rick.
Or a little bit, at least. You tested my game, that's for sure.
There was a developer that I was in the trailer for their game. They were goose-minded. They made a such art on Steam. I'm currently doing stuff for Free Lives, who did Gorn, Broforce, Angerfoot, and they've got a fantastic looking new game coming out called Stick It to the Stick Man, which is kind of like a love letter to those stick fight flash animations that you used to watch like growing up. I've done, honestly, I feel bad, but I can't remember anymore a lot of the devs that I've done stuff for, just because a lot of them, their games didn't really take off.
Sure.
So they've kind of disappeared from memory, and some devs, they'll be your friends like forever after you do a report for them. But some of them, you'll send them the report and they'll be like, thanks.
Right.
And then you won't ever hear from them again. So I don't go chasing devs.
And then Michael, you're a content creator as well. You're on Twitch.
Yeah, I'm on Twitch. I'm on Twitch now. I started making content in 2004 or 5 when YouTube came out. And once I moved to Twitch, I was able to get a lot more into my content. So my streams will usually be, I have a huge list of indie games I want to check out, and then the streams will often go anywhere from 9 to 16 hours. I just love diving into indie games or what new games are out, because I feel like indie devs are really carrying a lot of the creativity in games right now. I always find they give me the funnest things to kind of mess with. They introduce me to like the funnest ideas. So I like to show off their projects in hopes that someone will see it and be like, oh damn, this is a game, like I need to play this.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And if there was any indie devs currently listening that wanted to check out your stream or to ask you about streaming their game, Would that be something that you'd be interested in? How would they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have my Twitch channel, obviously the Electric Mindset, and I have a Discord for the Electric Mindset, and both of those are probably a good way to get a hold of me. Usually, just hit me up in Discord is the best option, but I do check my direct messages on Twitch from time to time. But I'm always happy to help out someone if I think their game catches my eye. I will say that is one thing. I am selective, where the way I see it, in order for me to give proper feedback or for me to show it properly, it needs to be a game that I'm actually interested in. If it's something that I just don't like the type of game and it's not going to be something I'm interested in, I won't force myself to do it. But I'm always happy to take a look at what people are doing. I love weird games, any kind of life sim. Really the only genres I find myself not being huge into are like tactics, strategy games, and sports games. But I have played sports games that I enjoyed. So you're always welcome to hit me up.
Cool. So the Electric Mindset on Twitch, and we could probably figure out your Discord from there.
Yeah, right below the homepage for the channel, there should be a link to my Discord.
Fantastic. Cool. So let's move on. Just going down the list here, Just Wall, you were on episode 23. You want to refresh everyone a little bit?
I was.
About who you are, what you do?
Oh gosh, episode 23. That's right. Yeah. Well, of course I develop games, but I'm a master of all. I try to do the indie solo dev. Actually, I did that for a really long time, and I enjoyed the chaos of creating every last bit of it, all the way down to QA testing, all the way to release and launch and attempting to market, or fumbling my way through marketing. But recently I've been teamed up with an Australian developer. He goes by Wirehead, and we've been making some pretty crazy stuff. We made Terrain, which is kind of an open world procedural generation 2D pixel platforming exploration mining thing. I guess the way I could say it is kind of like Starbound, but way more chunky pixels. And currently we're working on the Hunter's Path, which is a top-down PvE survival experience thingy.
And you were in Next Fest, right? With the Hunter's Path?
I was just in Next Fest. Yeah, it was my first Next Fest, actually. I've never participated in a Next Fest, and it was exciting. It was really cool to see. It's like a spotlight for developers. It's not the best. I mean, it's not just going to make your game have a billion views instantly, but it will limit the amount of demos to, I think it was 1,600 that were on there, if I looked correctly. It was somewhere around 2,000. And that's way better odds for someone to come across you when you're in that fest than the thousands and thousands and thousands of demos that are just out there. So it was really cool to see numbers increase. But my favorite thing about Next Fest is playing the demos.
Yeah.
Like I slacked on promoting my own thing because I was lost in all the cool demos that were out.
I've definitely used Next Fest to find things to show people or things to keep an eye on.
It's just one of the coolest fests. I think.
I also think it's interesting that you can only post your game to it once.
That's it. Yeah. So now that the Hunter's Path has been in there, I can no longer put Hunter's Path within another Next Fest. Next thing it can do is release fully. So kind of interesting.
Cool.
I think it definitely pushes devs to ensure that their demos are of a certain quality, because it's going to be their official first impression.
Yeah. I have some advice, some really good advice,
Sure.
Something that I learned that I failed at. And failures is how you learn things, right?
Absolutely.
So we've set up, there's a checkbox in Steam that's been recently added to where your demo can have a separate page. You have to physically check that checkbox and then get your separate demo page approved, because there's an approval for your page. What we did was we didn't check that box, and we already had our page approved. And so that allowed us to have the demo on our store page. But after talking to Jalen, one of Michael's friends,
he's a good dude.
Yeah, absolutely, very helpful. He was like, "Hey, how do you get it on a separate page so I can leave reviews?" I'm like, "Ooh!" And this, of course, the fest had already started, right? And so then I realized it was this checkbox, and it would take a day to get approved. But in the future, if I do Next Fest, I will do that separate page, because the games that had the reviews and the option to leave a review was great, because then you can kind of see if you're going to like the demo, right? You can do a little
That also
research.
opens up the discussions too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So people can actually list things and give more in-depth feedback than what they might give in a review.
Yeah, so we basically lost out on a lot of feedback, I feel like, because we didn't have that separate page. So just a note to any devs that are going to do a Next Fest ever, make that separate page so you can get good feedback and reviews. It's very helpful.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for that advice. I think people will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you
Absolutely.
wanted to go over, Just Wall, before we go on to Sal?
No, I just love music.
Love music.
I love music.
Nice.
If you like music for your game, I like making music. So music's the best.
Hell yeah. So Sal, we're on to you. You were on the most recent Indie Game Dev Report episode 25, but that was months ago because I moved and we're at a new location here. So how are you doing? And could you give us a little refresher?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm Sal. I go by Sal T GB on most social media. I've been working on a farming adventure game for the Game Boy for the past few years called Meadow GB. And then recently I've also been dabbling in a little bit of homebrew for the N64 on a game called
That excites me so much.
which is kind of a first person.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, it's a first person dungeon crawler.
Cool.
Mhm,
So it's like sprite based, right? Mostly, right? You're not using 3D
Yeah,
polygons
yeah.
or anything like that, which is interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to. The only homebrew development I've done is on the Game Boy using GB Studio previously, and that's a pretty structured environment. It's a very advanced editor for building Game Boy games, and I wanted to move over and do something more challenging, which was doing an N64 game, and that's a lot more of a kind of raw programming experience. You're going to be writing a lot of C, and you're going to be working with the specific architecture of the N64. So part of that was deciding, do I want to learn how to do 3D graphics or not? And I opted to just start with something a little simpler and just say, hey, let me try and do something 2D. We'll take one of the dimensions out, and maybe that'll make it easier. So yeah, just a way to kind of strip the project.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. Also very jealous because I've always low key wanted to get into N64 development, but just too much going on with me.
Hey, nothing to be jealous about. Maybe if I get around to it, I'll open source the project or do a write up on it.
At the very least, I'd love to test it when it's ready.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to go over about yourself?
No, that's it.
Cool. So the next thing is we've got discussion topics on a Google document, and if you guys want to have that open, that might help. But yeah, so we're just going to kind of go through, and if anyone has anything that they really want to talk about, or anything that they're experienced in, or anything they have questions about that they don't fully understand, or anything like that, I think Michael's going to work well as like a control variable in this, since he's a player and the rest of us are devs. That a lot of times devs end up with these like thoughts that have nothing to do with what the player thinks. So it's actually really cool to have everyone's opinion. And I don't know.
I will do my best.
Thank you. And like when you're a dev, people sometimes don't realize how important player feedback is until you're like in the thick of it, right? And then as a player, you don't realize how important your own feedback is because devs don't always tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
So if anyone has anything that jumps out at them that they really want to talk about, I'd love to hear it. So any topic, anyone, go.
Any topic, anyone, go. I kind of am curious. Sal was talking about Game Boy Studio and then going into N64 and continuing that. Like what code bases is that? And I have zero understanding of that, by the way. Like it's very foreign to me. So is it just like in their specific code base, or?
Yeah. The Game Boy game, I kind of alluded to this. I used a program called GB Studio, which is kind of like I said, it's a very structured editor. And so it's actually kind of become known as a very easy entry point for making games. It's got a drag and drop editor. The Game Boy itself is pretty limited in terms of hardware, so producing images or sprites for your game is, there's kind of like fundamental constraints.
Yeah.
It provides this pretty good environment. And it's also all in one. It's got a music editor, a code editor. You do have to bring your own pixel editor, but that's kind of, I think, the easiest thing to go get.
It's much for free.
Yeah. It's a very smooth way to start making games, and takes a lot of the kind of like toolkit knowledge you would need about programming out of the equation.
Right. I think Rick, you've been using that.
I have. Yeah, I've been really into it. Yeah, there's no coding required, but you can use some code if you want to. So it's really great. In fact, if you really want to, you can eject the engine and recode the engine. Someone actually made a hacked version of the engine to make NES games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So no code version, but I'm guessing that now the conversation's moving to the N64 is completely opposite of that. It's like crazy and no real good editor, and it's all coded. And
well, I'll tell you what, it's a relative thing. Right now in the N64 homebrew, there are some good programming tools. In particular, there's a library called LibDragon that a group of people have been working on for, I think it's close to a decade. And what that is it's kind of a basic set of toolkits, a library that you as a programmer can pull in, and you're doing all your work in C or C++ if you want.
Right.
But you can pull that in, and it really gives you a place to start. So you don't have to be really, down in the hardware, like sending instructions to a chip. You can say, hey, here's an image, load it in from a pretend file system, like, as if there's some, operating system on the N64, load that in and display it somewhere on the screen. I'll give you pixel coordinates and you can put it there. So sure, it's definitely still kind of a programming challenge to get in there, and you do need to write actual programs at C, but it's still very structured, and there's a lot of stuff that gets you off the ground. So you're not starting and kind of in the dirt, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I find it really interesting because, if you look at I guess probably both the games all the games that the developers on this call make, we're really inspired by that old school, like, vibe. But I've never gone and actually had an old school engine. I've always just used the new school engine, right? And given it an old school vibe. And so it's interesting to me to hear about actually using the old school hardware as well as like art and stuff and sound like the old games had. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, your stuff's stellar, man. Like, Sal, I checked out your demo. It's good. Yeah, like you piece it all together, and the art is like the palette stuff is what gets me because I do, the art as well, and like it's like a limited palette. And Rick, I was watching some of your streams. You're like, oh, I can't use more than X colors in this one square or something along those lines. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Palette limitation.
I'm so used to being completely free, right? Like I do whatever I want.
And Michael,
cool.
What do you think about homebrew as a player? Have you tested homebrew games at all? Have you played any on stream or anything like that?
Yeah, I've played a couple, but for me mainly it's nostalgic. But the big thing for me is I think the idea, like from the era when those games were coming out, Game Boy games and N64 games, gaming as a whole was a different thing. Like a video game as a whole was a different thing. So I always find it really interesting to see how people making those games now approach it, like the way they do mechanics, the way they design the levels, because people now when they think of games now are a different thing than they were when those games were coming out.
Agree, yeah.
They're a whole different beast. So I find people are being a lot more creative with their games. Like a lot of them I don't think you would have seen come out when those like consoles were initially around, because those types of ideas people use weren't really floating around. So I find them interesting. I find they can be kind of they can be a pretty interesting thing creatively to investigate and look into.
Well, one thing that I've realized as a homebrew developer is it's hard to get people to stream the games because they don't either they're not used to using an emulator, or they don't want to do like a web build on the stream, or like things of that nature. just logistics
Yeah.
make it difficult.
I will say the only reason why I'm not huge on web builds is because I don't find they run as well as something you can actually download.
Yeah.
So I don't prefer web builds, but I'll still play one. I definitely think a big part is both people don't want to use an emulator, don't want to go through the quote unquote trouble of getting one. But I also think a part of it is some people just don't care about old looking games.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And not to cut anyone off here, but it looks like Langle just dropped in, so that's awesome. Langle, if you're
Sweet.
ready, let us know and tell us a little bit about yourself
Hello,
and how you doing.
howdy. Yeah, I'm Langle. I'm a NES developer.
You fit right in with this
I don't
crowd.
know. I feel like I'm sorry I'm late.
No, it's totally fine.
Perfect.
It sounded like you were talking about some people hate looking at old stuff.
We were
It
getting
is
on
true.
a homebrew topic here. We just started the first topic of discussion. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself so people can. I know that you were just on an episode 24, and so people might recognize you. But let's get a little refresher about you. We already did everyone else.
Geez, and I missed their format for
There wasn't
presentation. To
Everyone just
copy.
winged it.
We just kind of like vomited out whatever we were saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing chiptune since like '98. I've been running this website called Battle of the Bits since '05. It's primarily chiptune competitions and does releases compilations and stuff. And I got into making video games just a few years ago. Yeah, on the NES of all things. So
That's fantastic. Was there anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
I love to hear it.
I'm a struggling entrepreneur.
With Low Blast, right?
That hits.
Yeah,
You got the
yeah, that's
Bleepler,
it. Yeah.
right? You got Guntner.
Yep, a little synth toy I designed and build and sells well at conventions, but does not sell well online because I don't think it works until you pick it up and hold it in your hands. The connection.
So you're selling Guntner as well, right? You go to conventions, sell it firsthand.
Yep. Yep. I sell my self-published versions. Megacat also sells a physical copy that they publish, and I'm also been for the past year showcasing my work on the NES port of Orange Island, which was a Kickstarter back in 2019.
And you're a content creator as well. I see you on Twitch all the time.
Oh yes, I stream stuff
under the name Puke7. If anyone's interested in checking him out.
Yep. Yeah. I'll be getting back on the NES development this week. I try to do Tuesday through Thursday, but sometimes there's just too much other stuff going on. And Friday nights we watch old commercials for fun.
Cool. And so on the topic of homebrew, I'm sure you have a lot to bring to the table. Earlier we were talking about Game Boy on GB Studio, and then N64 development using LibDragon, and Michael is a content creator, so he's not exactly a dev, but he does some testing and stuff. And then Just Wall hasn't done any homebrew stuff, but he likes the retro pixel style.
Cool.
Well, I do kind of have a question that I think would be very interesting to everyone's answer, because I've been dwelling on it in anticipation of this talk. And the question is, what's the dividing line between homebrew and indie games? Because I feel like they are very culturally different, and the net outcomes of the games they produce are different. But I had trouble in my own mind pinning down, like, okay, what separates the two? How do you pull them apart?
I mean, the simple answer, I think, is that homebrew is more about being aftermarket stuff for old consoles.
Yeah, the hardware.
And indie seems like a big, huge blanket term for anybody making games on their own.
I agree.
Right.
Yeah, if you're a homebrew developer, you're an indie also. But if you're an indie, you're not necessarily a homebrew developer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the line comes from kind of what you guys were talking about, having to use those specific tools to create something in a fashion that is exactly like they would have created it back then. And that's kind of how I always view it, and that's what I've never gotten into was all those tools, right? But I think all the concepts are the same, right? You have a sprite, and the sprite can be animated, and you got an X and a Y, at least if you're doing 2D, and all those would be 2D, and right. So
I guess it's maybe just really like an aesthetic label. It's like if you adhere to these rigid set of aesthetics, you get to be homebrew.
Right.
Otherwise you get to the indie level.
Just indie, yeah.
As long as it works on the hardware.
I mean,
right?
Yeah. It's more than the restrictions and aesthetics. It has to actually run on old hardware.
Yeah.
That's what I always understood homebrew as, was games that were made for retro consoles. Made how they would make.
But luckily,
a game
emulators are readily
console.
available, so no one needs to actually purchase old hardware to play these games. But they should work on them.
That would be so cool, though.
Oh yeah.
Somebody here's probably released a cartridge, huh? Maybe.
I think Puke has. I don't. Sequel.
Yeah,
have you
did,
gotten anything out on cartridge or no?
No,
I haven't either.
That's crazy. Is that expensive? I've never even looked into that ever. Yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
Well, I mean, I couldn't afford to do it without running a Kickstarter first, but
that's cool though, man.
The profit margin on the physical is pretty good, but you have to find those customers.
Yeah.
Collectors, right?
So that's a whole different thing.
It's like niche, right? Like those are the customers.
It is, because I love games like that, but I'm not going to drop $40 on something that's going to have me digging my nest out of the basement. I would much rather play it on an emulator just because I'm lazy.
That's probably pretty standard or pretty common these days.
Yeah, so my box I sell for $70.
Right.
The ROM itself is just name your own price on itch. So it's I mean, it's my first game, so I don't know. I'm just trying to make it available to as many people as possible.
I like how the suggested price was $420.
Yeah,
that's the way to go, man. That's the way to go.
I gotta speak to my customers anyway.
Yeah. I find that really interesting, though. To actually put something on a cartridge, it's pretty cool. I'm old, so that was like my childhood, right? Like.
Yeah.
I'm probably still the oldest one here. Do I win? I'm 45 years old. Do I win?
Oh, I'm turning 47
Oh,
in
you
May.
win. Look at that. Congratulations.
I'm just glad I'm not the oldest.
Yeah, I got to the game real late, man. I didn't start. I mean, I knew I wanted to make games and stuff, and I love making music, and always drew them as a kid and tried to do pixel art. But it wasn't until 2017 that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this, damn it. And then just like started learning. You guys know the process, right? You get in there and but it took a really long time for me to think I could do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get out there, and that's what I love about devs and talking with devs is everyone has their own story. Some people have been coding since they could, pull their own diaper up, and other people just started yesterday. And with the tools we have today, it's kind of crazy the speed that you can get up to speed. I always feel like I'm living in a world where 20-year-olds are just going to crush me for sure. Like my skills are just weak potatoes compared to 20-year-olds today.
Well, yeah, they have all that young energy, and the internet is, I don't know, all the answers are there.
It's all there.
Like, I tried and failed as a teenager to make video games. Like I was programming and I could get stuff on screen, but like I had no one to ask anything.
Right. Yeah, you didn't.
I think a big thing is time too. When you're younger, you have a lot more free time.
That is true. That's how I learned how to play guitar really well, was that, I could only play Star Fox for like 2 hours a dime before I had to turn that crap off and do something else, right?
If you have a lot of free time now, you're either young or unemployed.
That's true. That's true.
I've been itching to talk about generative AI, and I feel like that kind of leads into that, right? Because
I could tell.
Yeah.
And I'll be straightforward. I am pretty much completely anti AI at this point. I mean, I can see maybe in the future it might be, but obviously anyone who has different opinions, I'm totally fine with that. In fact, that's kind of the point of this, is to just get everyone's opinions. But yeah, I think that kids these days are like looking at AI like, oh, well, now I can just use AI and that'll help me. And a lot of coders in particular are saying, oh, but it's great for coding. It might suck for art. It might not be, ethical for art, but it's great for coding. And then they always say the same thing. They're like, oh, all that boilerplate code, you just don't have to write it anymore. It's like all that easy boilerplate code.
I think those are people who don't know how to properly use AI. I don't know where people got this idea that it's just a one and done thing. I think for me, I'm for AI as long as it's not used lazily. Like, you could maybe get an idea of what the code could look like using AI, but I think in order for it to be good, it always needs human touch. Like, you always need to go through it and all that. These people who just do it and it's done, it's almost always a mess from what I've seen.
I actually have a funny story.
Oh, go for it. You got a story? Let's hear it.
I do. It was just from this last week. I decided, hey, I work in Game Maker, and I know it now. I've done it for many years. And so I was like, I wonder, because I don't know if I'm on the AI train or not either. I don't know. I can't. I don't think I am. But I went and I just said, write me a Game Maker language script for player movement. And 1 second later, I had a list of instructions of what to do in the engine. And then I put the code in there, and it made my red block move with collisions.
So it worked.
It worked, yeah. And so I don't know that I like it, but I do agree with you that I feel the younger generations, like my youngest child, who's just 12 now, and when they get older, yeah, they're just going to use that. It's the easy way, right? But it blew my mind that it worked to begin with, right?
There's some bad AI code out there.
But I think this is where Rick was talking about juice. So even though it might work, I still think anyone who uses that as a tool, which is what it is, it's a tool in my mind, not a solution. I think if you treat it as a solution, it's lazy implementation to me, and I oftentimes don't like it. But if everyone's using the same generated way to do it, everything's going to feel the same. So someone should still get in there, mess with it, make it juicy, and use it like that.
I completely agree, because the code worked, right? It did what it was supposed to do, but it wasn't perfect, and you would have to go in there. You still need that knowledge of the engine and the language to caress that into a true player who can swing swords or whatever you're trying to do, right? You still have to put your hands in there.
But I found I kind of looked at it a little bit as a tutorial. There was a time when I started looking to see at how good it could write like a poem or something like that. And I have always treated kind of generative AI like this. And I hope that people who use it for stuff like game dev do as well. But it can also kind of just show you different ways of doing things. So if you're so focused on, for example, making a movement system with collision, and there's one way you kind of always know how to do it, I think it could be beneficial to even people who are using it as a solution. Once they see the code, I'm the type of person that would always look at it and try and learn what was kind of going on. I think it'd be really interesting to ask it to give you 5 different ways
do the same thing. To
have a movement system with collision, and then just see kind of what it does, because that could be a great learning tool.
That's what we actually used it for, because I showed Wirehead this, and then what ensued after that was a conversation about how they achieved it, and how it's different than what I've done, and also different than what he's done.
Yeah.
So that was the benefit of it, right? The conversation that happened from it, but it can be abused to just be used to get all the basics done. And in my day job, where I'm developing softwares that process transactions, it's huge there, right? Everyone's using it if they can.
Interesting.
For coding, that kind of stuff, right? It seems more socially acceptable to because development's so expensive for a company to just go out and use a single line of command and it gives you back everything you need, and then you just have to pay someone to massage it.
Yeah, as an artist, that seems weird.
But the more corporations that take it over, right?
Because you get the generative AI art, and it's like you pretty much need an artist that specializes in massaging this AI art. Like if you ask it to spit out concept images, they might look okay even. But how do you actually turn that into a 3D model? If you say give us a side view and a top view and a front view, the AI isn't capable of that right now.
Right.
That's the big thing for me when it comes to generative AI in games. And I find where I often have the most issue is I find people are laziest with the art. Like that's where I kind of grew this opinion that it needs to be worked on by a person in order for it to be proper. A big one is I would start seeing Steam capsule images with like a hand with like a half of a fifth finger
or a whole sixth finger
on it. And I mean, to me, what that says is I have a dev who doesn't really care about the details of what they're putting out there. And I have ignored games that I've noticed that in. But then again, there's other games I've played where they have stated that they used AI for these different things, but it all looks good. At the end of the day, for me, generative AI in games is the game good? Because even if that game with the capsule image, let's say Vampire Survivors had a capsule image where someone had like a fifth finger, the game itself would carry people past that, I think, because it's just an addictive game. Like, it's a good game.
That's kind of what's happening with Call of Duty, is that people are kind of like, they don't care that it's got six fingers on the AI images that they're using, but it's very disheartening for me. I actually used to apply for Activision back in the day. I don't anymore, but now they don't even have artists to fix a six-fingered Santa Claus zombie,
Right, they're just...
Well, they do have artists. They just aren't going to put them to work on that. And that's like lazy implementation of AI. To me, what the message that sends me as a player is that Activision they're just trying to push games out. They're not trying to make like an actual good game. They're just keeping the recipe, pushing out the next dish.
Well, it's the bigger companies, right? They're the ones that see cost savings in like, oh, if AI can do all this for me, then I don't need to pay these employees.
And I will say this is actually a turning point for me. This is where I draw the line. I don't agree with any form of generative AI in a AAA game. I am purely of the mind that it's great for indie developers who may not have the resources or may lack the skill in certain areas to kind of get a jump start into it and start learning it. But a AAA dev that's making billions of dollars a year, like hundreds of millions of dollars a year, they have no excuse to rely on something like that. I get it's money. The answer is always money. But it's disheartening to me to see that they have all these resources available to them and can't be pissed to put in the work.
Hasn't the sales on AAA games been like plummeting over the past couple of years too?
It has.
Is that
a big reason for that has been price for me, honestly.
For everyone. I mean, the games just aren't worth how much they charge.
Yeah, like in Canada, I was just looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's $94.
Well, 94 Canadian, but yeah.
So it's like 80 bucks, 80
and I'm
US.
not doing that.
That's just like a reskin, right? Like
it's a full
it's
full
more
remake,
than a reskin.
but still though, it's the regular price.
It's damn it's
well,
damn
then they're talking
$100
US for Grand Theft Auto 6 or 6, right? There's rumors of that. Then that would be $115 for you up there in Canada or whatever.
I just checked. They have a bundle for both the Final Fantasy remakes, and it's $147. So it's a big cost.
The games that get me are the ones that do that. Like what was that, Skull and Bones or whatever, Ubisoft? You had to pay that $70 to get in, and then there was still additional stuff you could buy. It's like, oh my gosh, when are we stopping?
Yeah, that's nonsense. Another big reason for me is because there's a much bigger variety and often better indie games coming out that are half the cost of a AAA
that's
game.
where I'm on board. Things like Necess and Core Keeper and these crafting survival games are so good. There's just so many great ones.
There is this argument I like. It's like you can't expect video games to be $50 forever.
Right. But they have been though, haven't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, they have, and like it's because over time the boxes got smaller, and then they got rid of the boxes, and,
Right.
and now it's all digital, and there's nowhere to go. They have to at some point they had to start charging more. I mean that's why I charge $70 for my NES game in a box. If you go by inflation, I should be charging like 110, 120, like against what games were sold for in the 80s for the NES,
absolutely.
and what that inflation
I'm
is.
pretty sure I bought an NES game in the
Physical
80s
releases.
that for that price for $70 or $60.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The ones with the saving battery chip, like
Yeah.
But also back then, weren't people making quite a bit more money than people are
Oh, you
now?
mean like
Yeah.
salaries and stuff?
money money was worth more back then.
I think people were more financially sound back then.
On average,
I think
yeah.
a lot of people are struggling now, and I know there's inflation and all that, but for most people buying games, I don't even think it's that complex. I think it's just they have a set dollar amount in their head that they will not go over on a purchase unless they really, really want it. And if it's every person's different opinion of if they think it's worth it.
I think most of it actually comes
I've
down to
also
your
seen
friends.
people talk about the dollar per hour
Oh.
thing, which doesn't make any sense.
I hear that
to
a
me.
lot too.
Of gameplay.
Yeah, dollar per
Yeah.
hour of
Yeah.
gameplay. But yeah, that doesn't make sense because I'm an indie game player. I play a lot of indie games. I was playing Peglin earlier, but I was actually also playing Helldivers too, which surprises
Double
me
A
because
game, right?
normally I don't.
I think
It's
That's
triple A.
I've been
AAA,
living
okay.
Helldivers too.
Yeah, it's published by PlayStation.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So it's actually a great game. Surprisingly, I was very surprised that it was as good as it is. But it's also really, really buggy.
Yeah.
Like really buggy.
No
No
pun
pun intended,
intended.
because there's bugs in the game that you fight, but there's bugs in the games that you fight in a literal sense as well, or metaphorically and literally.
Boxing
Yeah,
matches.
but I've put in over 200 hours on that game. I'm not gonna pay $200 for it though. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I find that the last couple of years, most game purchases 30 or under have just been amazing to me. And I haven't bought anything really more expensive than that. Maybe Factorio, I think it's $40. Right.
And then there's the
I
whole
think a
race to
big-
the bottom with the indies, right?
Yeah.
What's up with that, right? In order to sell your game, you're like, well, I need to charge less. I remember when I first started making Retro Spaceball, I was thinking, oh, this will be like $20 game, and all my friends are like, that game's only worth like $5, right? I was like, okay.
One thing I will say that's
Crazy.
turned my opinion on that sometimes and had me buy a more expensive indie game is when the dev has released small free games that have shown me that their games are consistently games that I enjoy. At that point, they could put their next game out for like $20, $30, and I'd be like, I friggin' love this dev. Like, I know this dev makes good games. I will pay whatever they put up there for it because I know
that's
it's going to
quite
be something I'm
interesting.
going to
But how
love.
do you keep the lights on selling free games?
Well, it's not really about keeping the lights on. It's kind of like you're making a portfolio for the player. You're showing them what you can do. You're showing them what you've done. And I think you can gain, at least for me personally, I have become fans of devs before they've ever put out a paid product. But when they do put out the paid product, it's an instant buy for me.
Well, let's say that a free game costs about $100,000, which is give or take. How does one afford that without making any money off of it?
I don't know. man.
Passion.
That's how much time
I don't think
you
a lot
spend,
of-
and if your time's worth anything, then you're spending money.
Right.
I suppose
I
so.
don't
I
know.
don't know why some indie devs do it. I just know it's definitely had me purchase their next games.
I think it has a lot
I
to
was
do with
actually
passion.
thinking, I mean, you have to have some reason why you are willing to put in the time. But I mean, that's the same thing with content creation. A lot of the times you're not seeing anything out of that. That's a ton of time you're spending without any kind of return. You have to be passionate about it in order to keep doing it. Like for me, I've been doing it now for almost 20 years.
I bet you're there. I bet you're at 20
years. But for me, like I look at, so the developer who released Lethal Company, they released a free horror game called Dead Cedar. It was like one of the best indie horror games I played, and it wasn't super complex or anything. Then they released It Steals for $5, and then The Upturned, which The Upturned is one of my favorite indie horror games because it's goofy and weird. And then all of a sudden they released Lethal Company. And when Lethal Company came out, because I had played like Dead Cedar, The Upturned, they only charged $13 for Lethal Company, but if they would have made that game $20, I would have bought it right away. But they're a dev who made 2 free games that were available to people and showed what they could do.
And do they have like DLCs or in-app purchases or anything like that?
No, nothing like that.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it just sounds like a pretty competent brand building strategy.
Thing I will do, I didn't see it as a DLC, but I guess technically nowadays it would be considered it. They do have, like, for example, The Upturned is $11. They have a $13 version where you can also get like the soundtrack for it, which honestly, I love video game music. That's something I think every dev should do. And this is, sorry if this is ignorant, but it seems like something that's kind of, it's a low work, low effort, like thing you can do that won't take hundreds of hours, that will do it. Just taking the music from your game and putting it in a soundtrack. I love stuff like that.
That's a good point. I mean, I don't know exactly how difficult it is to do. I'm sure there's, ASCAP and all that stuff to make sure it's like copywritten or whatever, but then also like copywriting music and YouTube and streaming. I don't know. There's definitely some logistics and planning in that, but I think you're right that the games do it, so it's a thing.
Yeah, I just use Bandcamp. Like Bandcamp's my jam for that. Is once I'm done with the soundtrack, it goes up there and it's free and people can buy it. I mean, it's free to me, right, to upload, and then can be purchased, and it's good quality and stuff. You can't stream it.
But I know I've jammed out to Demon Fish Dead Ahead's soundtrack.
Thank you.
Quite a bit.
I know it's hard to get it onto Spotify and Apple Music and all those things. That costs a little money and takes a bit of time. But
if you use
DistroKid is who I used to use. It was like a year payment that was actually pretty cheap, and they just toss it on everywhere.
Now they have it to where you can keep releasing albums and singles for an annual price on most of those places.
Yeah, I've used DistroKid for that. I've also seen some people they did Bandcamp releases, and then somebody just grabs the audio. These were compilations actually. They just ripped the Bandcamp and then uploaded it to something like DistroKid, and then they start doing copyright strikes on videos with your own music in it.
I've heard
on
this.
YouTube, and because
I worry about it.
Yeah.
That's why I keep everything. I keep the originals of absolutely everything. So if I have to contest someone, I can be like, all right, well, how about this? You provide the original files and I'll provide all the original files.
I don't know.
Well,
I just go ahead and use DistroKid. Because it automatically puts you ahead of anybody else trying to do that shit.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
It's like an insurance policy.
Because you do like a lot of chiptune stuff,
Good
right?
advice.
Like, so you're uploading often, like.
Chiptune's my favorite.
And so, like, was that a chiptune that got stolen and that happened to you? Do you know by chance? Or was it?
There's this group called Staff Circle, and they do chiptune and what's it called? Digital Fusion, which is that's a funny name for people who make chiptune who don't want to be constrained by the sounds of chiptune.
Yeah, they can go outside of
I'm gonna use Windows MIDI or whatever. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, that happened to them.
That's crazy.
I don't remember how I found out about the copyright strike stuff. I think I was trying to publish a track I had gotten on one of their compilations and instantly got a strike. And I was just like, what? I didn't get a strike. I got like, whatever is shy of a 3 times you're out. But yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of creepy. I didn't like it.
That is weird. That's not cool.
I just try and advocate people who are putting music online to just go the extra mile, because it's probably worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Now, you do. You have like a site where people can put chip tunes up, and there. If I remember watching your episode correctly, and
Battle of the Bits.
yeah, Battle of the Bits. I love that stuff, but I'm so terrible at chip tunes. I've tried so many times, and I am absolute ass at making chip tunes. I don't know what the magic is.
There's some real talent.
It is
on Battle of the Bits,
and I can play
some real
every
talent
instrument. I can play drums. I can play the piano. I can play the guitar well, right? Like, and I cannot make chip tunes. I just for the life of me. So
there used to a buddy of mine. He goes by why am I blanking? Moot Booksley. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's a super talented guy. We also have like what's called all gear battles, which just means you can do whatever. And he can compose chiptune, but he hates it because he can just sit down and play the stuff. So sequencing anything is like annoying to him.
Oh, I see. I love sequencing. Yeah.
Chiptune arpeggios is
I just can't give it the good sound. Like when I listen to, because I can tell if it's like this cool chiptune. Like for instance, the original Legend of Zelda, I can listen to on repeat forever, just forever, right? But I can't. I've tried to like emulate and create something in that same fashion, and it is really difficult. It's not easy. Like,
funny story about Legend of Zelda. The soundtrack was actually heavily influenced by a Deep Purple song.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you listen to the song, I can't remember which one it was, but if you listen to it,
it's a long song. It's like 13 minutes
the entire Legend of Zelda soundtrack in it.
I think they cut like a third of the content too, because there was a size constraint.
Yeah, it's a short soundtrack, right? Like the soundtracks back on those NES cartridges were not very long. It must be 10 minutes.
Especially
the song is called April.
It's less than 10 minutes for sure.
Yeah.
April's the name of the song by
Deep Purple.
If anyone wants to look it up, 8 minutes and 40 seconds. But if you listen to it, within the first 30 seconds, you hear the intro, and then before long, you hear the dungeon music, and then you hear the overworld theme. It's all within that song. It's so crazy. And the person who composed the Zelda soundtrack was a huge Deep Purple fan.
Koji Kondo.
Nice. But yeah, that's a little bit of a side topic.
I realized the other day that most of my favorite game composers are actually Japanese.
Yep.
Right?
A lot of the greats.
There's a real specific art to making loopy music.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Those tracks are all like, between 30 seconds and a minute long, and they loop. And like that is, there's one thing to just sit down and make a 2-3 minute chiptune song. There's another thing to make a loop of that length that doesn't tire the player.
Yeah, so this repetitive.
It doesn't sound too repetitive. Yeah. It's not, and also that it works well as game music, right? Because that's like a whole other thing itself. Like if you can make great music, but if it doesn't work well for the game, then you can't really. You can use it, but it's not going to sound as good as something that works well with that particular game.
Any old school action game from the 80s, I swear they were like Dragon Force inspired. You know what I mean? Like it all feels like this super power metal stuff, and it's amazing to me. Right?
I love that.
Yeah, I had so many countless conversations with friends like around the age of 1920 about how does this music have so much energy and power, and it's just these horrible sounds.
Exactly.
Sequence.
It's all mashed together. It sounds great, man. But you hear them separately, you're like, oh, that's weird. I don't like that separately. It's just like when you get those isolated vocal mixes, you're like, whoa, that's really weird to me. That's how it feels when you pull apart some of the chiptune stuff. But I do like a lot of the stuff that's chiptune, kind of what you were talking about, where it's like it is using chiptune, but then they're using modern like effects and things going on behind them. I've seen quite a few indie games like that now.
That's the type of music I enjoy making the most.
Yeah, where it's like a blend of those two things, right?
Some people call it fake bit, right?
Fake bit.
I like this idea of retro, like Atari synths and modern synths duking it out. I've always liked that.
You can have a battle. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a song where there was a battle, like a like a guitar battle between an Atari synth and a modern synth. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, you've made some really good music, and you don't. It's not showcased as much. People should listen to your tunes.
I don't show my music because it's not good enough.
But
yet.
it's when you're on your waiting channel, it's you. I hear it every time. But yeah, you have some great great music, man. Like I've listened to a bunch of your stuff.
Oh, I didn't know you made that track. That's a really well done track. For some reason I thought that it was
my
like
streams
purchased.
is everything, and all my content is stuff I've made to avoid copyright.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he makes all kinds of cool music.
That stream starting soon song. The only reason we wait 11 minutes before starting a stream is because that's how long I made the song.
It was an epic.
So I looped it over itself, but I know it's going to loop after 11 minutes, so I always start the stream at 11 minutes.
Dude, you sent it to me like the day after you made that because you were hyped about it, and I listened. I'm like, that's a really good song, and then I'm always happy that years later, it's still playing on your stream, man.
I make a song, and then I've listened to it so much that by the time I've finished it, I'm like on the road to not liking it anymore.
Yep. That's game dev and then, too, just so you know. When you're making
I just don't ever feel like it's good
almost
enough.
ready to QA release, and you're like, nah, should I even release it? I don't even know.
The main reason is I know that I don't know how to mix my music. So even the game music I've done for people, it's been the only music I've tried to mix.
Yeah.
And until I know more about mixing, I'm probably not going to release any more music.
I love it. I want to find your stuff. So I'm going to find it. I'm going to share it with the world because everyone should hear your music.
But it's fun. I've looked back at that. What I was thinking of doing was doing remixes of like old game music with kind of like my own influence on it. But that's something, I have too many projects in my head that I want to do and none of the time.
Tell me about it, man. I know that feeling.
Yeah. Like if people want the superpower to freeze time so they can do nefarious shit, and I'm like, I'd really love to set up my computer for like 800 hours for time to not move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not enough time in a day to finish everything, but all of us devs pretty much try, right? Like after my 8 hours, you know?
I have a saying, it's every day I feel another half day behind.
That's very true. It's very true. I always feel like I don't get enough done or like I haven't tried hard enough, but then you look back at a year's worth of work and you're like, oh yeah, I tried really hard and I got a lot done, you know? It's a weird thing. I deal with a lot of like imposter syndrome. I'm sure everybody's really familiar with that, and it's just brutal, right? You have to almost keep telling yourself.
Imposter syndrome, doesn't that require success in some way?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think I think you can never have had success and still feel like an imposter. Like, I'm never going to do good enough at music. I'm never going to do good enough at making a game. I'm never going to be a good enough coder. And I'm probably right. But
well,
I think that's where it once again comes back to passion. You need to be able to have fun with it. If it's not fun for you to do, and you're just keeping working on it because you want to get better, I think you're going to drain yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, burnout's a thing. You know what helps the most though is feedback from people like Michael here. Like and Michael's never heard me say this, but there's been times where we were like, so we're not even going to keep going. And then you would send us something and like have this idea and it would spark us again. And we'd be like, oh, that's so cool. And then we actually did that. I think you helped us keep Terrain going twice. You probably don't know that, but like just having that player feedback and somebody who's actually playing and going, hey, this is cool. You could make it do this, or this is have them have a present and it blows, whatever you're saying, like that shit inspires the developers. Like, oh, somebody actually does want us to make this.
That means a lot. And it's actually recently Rick was talking about this. And then there was another time where I popped onto Rick's stream, but I was lurking and he started talking about my reports to someone.
Oh, yeah.
And now to hear this from you, like that was a big reason why I recently revamped the report. I think I sent you guys the first kind of draft of the new one.
Was that the Hunter's Path? I thought you gave me one back in Terrain days. You gave me it was like the first one.
Revamped and then and so it was for Hunter's Path that I sent out the new one.
That was great. It had numbers and like I could track and I could talk to you about specific numbers. in your
Yeah,
thing.
the index
Yeah,
thing has always been big, but I've
100%.
started kind of getting into that more again because I stopped doing them for a long time because I was like, I would do them a lot for other devs and then they would just thank me. They wouldn't say anything about it to me.
Right.
And it kind of made me stop doing them because I was like, I like doing this to kind of have a back and forth with the dev and stuff like that. But a lot of the time it was just like radio silence after I sent it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of stopped doing them.
Your feedback's great because it's positive and negative. It's all overarching. It's what developers need, right?
It has to be, man. No one will make anything better if you're just kissing their ass all the time.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
It's true.
100%. Like, and you have to know what is bad, and you can't let it get to you that somebody, and that's hurt me. Like, it hurt me with the graphics. There's a lot of people when you put a game on Steam that if you're not running high-end graphics and you're running pixel stuff, it's ugly or it's crap, and like.
Well, I think that's also
couldn't
part of the
afford
challenge.
a
It's not
3D
just being
artist.
able to take criticism; it's being able to successfully sift through what is actual
navigate.
criticism and what is just kind of garbage criticism.
That's
like not all
probably the
criticism
hardest
is good
part
criticism.
of being a designer is navigating the criticism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and you have to make those design choices too, because a player's coming to you, like Michael, you're coming to me and you're like, I'd like to do this. And we have to think about like, well, how would we implement that? And is it worth the time, right? Like, yeah. And some of the stuff has been worth the time.
Some of the stuff I suggest is just not not helpful to all the players.
You're like, hey man,
it's like, how can I block in more animals?
Yeah.
Could we maybe
you were like, hey, you should put a search on the inventory, and my brain just broke. I'm like, no, but you have good ideas, and that feedback really helps. Your friend Jalen helped us on the Hunter's Path as well.
Jalen is a legend, that guy, and I know so little about him because he doesn't ever talk about himself. But if you go to him with something, he has always been kind of like my secret confidant, where if I have something that's going on, I'll reach out to him. And he always kind of sets me straight.
Well, it was cool to like take your feedback and his feedback and compare them side to side. Because I do this for a job, right? I build products. They're not games, but they're websites. And so you put you put all the feedback side to side, and you go, okay, which one's aligned? You know, if everybody's asking for something, there's probably something wrong with it, right? But if only one person's asking for it, then it becomes that opinion is like, do we do that or not, right? And it was funny, the things that you guys aligned on, and then the weird stuff that you had asked for and the weird stuff that he had asked for were totally different, right? Like it's very beneficial stuff to have as a developer.
The weird stuff that I ask for like puts me on a watch list.
Sal, you've been pretty quiet.
I
know you got things to say on this though, because you've been doing tons of work on MeadowGB, and it's gotten lots of feedback, right? And you've made lots of changes over time, and now you're also moving really fast on this Nintendo 64 dev. So I'm interested what you have to say about what we've been chatting on here.
No, I was just drinking it in, following along. I actually, hilariously, I have received pretty sparse feedback on Meadow. I guess it was like 3 years ago, I did commission 2 different people to do playthroughs with notes, and I've taken those notes and implemented them slowly, over the last like 2 or 3 years. But there's even some things it's funny. Every release I look at, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that next release. Like that's important. That was a good idea, but I'll get it in the next one.
But you are getting stuff in releases that people have asked for, which is awesome, right? Like
yeah. There's definitely like you guys are saying, when you get the feedback, it's a real positive like upward cycle type of thing, where it's like, okay, we're getting the spiral going in the right direction here. But it's can be very challenging, I think, doing kind of a long form project to be able to find enough energy and enough feedback to kind of keep that going. It doesn't come very consistently, kind of pop off for a little bit and then go quiet. And that's where it really gets tough, where it kind of loops back to what Justfella was saying about like you kind of gotta have, or I guess it was Michael was saying, you gotta have passion. There has to be something else going on in there where you can lock into that when the tank kind of runs dry.
Yeah. Agree. And it can't just be caffeine. I mean, it can be for a while, but then that runs out too. But
I also think it's important for you to know when to walk away for a bit.
Yep.
Like if you force yourself to do something when you're hitting the burnout point, you need to go like read a book or something. You need to go start hiking for like a week,
outside, man.
Big
and
walk.
then come back to it.
Touch some
Yeah,
grass.
man. I
There you go,
fall
touch
so
some
many
grass.
bugs, like just taking a walk, stopping thinking about
Oh,
it,
yeah,
and just
man.
take a walk, and you're like, oh shit, it's just A equals Y. What? Get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
But I will say and this is so counterintuitive to like what I do. I mean, Rick had to talk me into putting a donation link into the reports that I do, but I don't like people charging for feedback. And I know that is a real job. I know that's something people do. If you work for a AAA company, that's going to be presented to millions of people. I get people paying for that, but indie devs, I mean, that's what why I started my reports, is because I want professional level feedback being available for free to people who need.
I still think it's
just
similar to the game release concept you had, though, man. You gave me feedback for my very first game way forever ago for free, and then you gave me it for Terrain for free, and now I trust your feedback, and I would pay you $40 for your game.
I
you know what
didn't
I mean?
grow up with a
Like,
lot of money, so I wasn't able to get a lot when I was growing up. And if I was an indie dev, and back when I was younger, I never would have been able to afford any of that stuff. I had no money. Like, we chose between getting food or having the electricity on. So
Brutal.
Everything that I've done, I always want it to be available for free in case people need it. Like, if someone wants to donate, I guess they can, but it would almost make me uncomfortable. Like, I want to be able to help people achieve what they want to do, and I want to make sure that is free.
Well, thank you for that.
And while we're on this topic, oh, go ahead, Jessel.
I was just going to say, I like to make you feel uncomfortable, so expect a donation soon.
So while we're on this topic, Langle, how do you deal with feedback for Low Blast? Do you have like people that you rely on, that you've got trusted individuals, or you have like public feedback? A little bit of everything.
Most of it's public. I do a lot of conventions. I'm doing less this year, but like last year I did 11 conventions. So there's like a lot of face-to-face time and during those.
So you'll have the game set up for people to play then?
Yeah. I haul CRTs and NESs out and stuff. Before I released the game, there was some speedrunner friends I have that would run through it, and some other I don't know. I was just letting anybody play it that was willing, and they definitely found some like weird laggy spots that I eventually figured out how to fix. And yeah, I don't know. I took it to MagFest. Was it 2022? I think, and like. There's you have the two buttons on the controller, and they're both attacks, but one does a spread shot, and people just didn't notice that the spread shot was eating like your health bar. It's a shield meter, but yeah, and so what I wound up doing was just disabling the spread shot for like the first 5-10 seconds of the game, and that just trains them to use the other button. But
that's interesting.
Then the following March, I ran into Ben Heck at the Milwaukee Midwest Gaming Convention. He played my game for a bit, and he's like, "I just can't tell I'm taking damage." And the game was already done at that point, but had somebody just directly said that to me, like
right.
I probably would have started shaking the HUD, which would have been really easy to do. But the game had already shipped, and it's an NES game. It's done. It's done.
Yeah. It's that feedback though is great though, and you're like, dang it, like. We say the honest feedback. I mean, not the. Yeah, it's really good, man. I like it. See, I would get the same thing in my band. They'd be like, "Yeah, the band was great." I'm like, "Was it though? Like, was it a good show?" Like, I don't know if it was a good show. Can you tell me, like, for real? Like, I know our drummer messed up a couple times, right? Like,
it sounds funny, but that's why sometimes I try to be really brutal in my reports.
Right.
Like I'll go for the throat every once in a while just to remind you that I will.
It helps so much. It helps so much to know what people hate about a game. It just does.
But I also think that's a big thing too. You can't just say like I hate this.
No.
You need to get in depth with how much, like why you hate it.
But every player is
And
going
you
to
need to
dislike
break
something.
it down into
like,
crucial detail.
I even dislike things.
That's another
about
thing I wish a
Minecraft.
lot of devs would get into their head is that you can't please everyone.
You can't.
You will always have someone who hates what you do, and you need to be okay with that.
Yeah, and I make niche games. That's how I always look at it. I'm not making something for the greater audience, right? I'm not going to have this crazy Pal World success thing, right? It's just, and some people I think get fixated on that, but you have to realize who your audience is for, right? And the more niche your game is, the smaller your audience is, right? In essence.
Yeah.
And so then you have to market for just that audience. But if it's a smaller pool, then it's harder to get any traction from marketing. It's not impossible. There's people looking for all kinds of games out there, even the weird ones that I hide from my Steam list. They're looking for all that stuff, right? But one thing I wanted to talk about, we kind of hinted on it here, is we were talking about testing, or not testing. We were talking about feedback, and then kind of about. Oh, I was going to bring it into QA testing, because in some ways Michael has helped me QA test some things, but he was not a QA tester. Like I QA tested, or we QA tested our games, and it was rigorous, right? Like I'm curious if other people, what other developers are doing for what they call their QA testing, right?
A lot of what I do is I'll just play the crap out of my own games until I break them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I just continue to break them until I can figure out ways to fix them.
Right.
I'll even if I can't figure it out, I'll just write down a list of all the ways that I broke it. And sometimes I cross my fingers and say, I hope no other players realize that you can break the game this way.
Right.
But depending on how many people play it, inevitably they always find it.
They do.
I released.
I think the game developers also need to look out for those legendary, essentially the QA equivalent of a whale. Like for me, I'll sit there and play Just Wall's game for over 100 hours, and you need to find people who will do that, because those people can help a lot. They're just rare.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I
think it's important for devs to see a test that was done differently than how. I find if you make the game, there's a particular way you play it because you know exactly how it should be played. I think it's important to have someone who plays it their way and not your way to see how that reflects.
Right.
Oh, I agree.
Sorry, Rick.
No, one thing I was going to say was that recently I released a game with a team called Little Screamies, and just yesterday I found a video on YouTube of someone speedrunning it. And they were using all of my exploits.
They knew it all.
They even found exploits that I didn't know, but they also missed one that I knew that they didn't use.
Interesting.
I had so much fun with Little Screamies when I was playing that. I think it broke. I think I broke it completely, and was that when I couldn't actually beat it anymore?
I'm not sure, honestly, because you played an early version of it. And then you played the release version of it. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
It was the release version, I think.
I'm not sure if I watched you play that, to be honest.
I destroyed it. Yeah, you did, because I tried to bring all the plushies with me to the end of the game.
I remember you telling me about that, but I'm not sure if I was there for that.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
It's amazing.
Although I don't think I kept the VOD because I didn't want people to see that it broke and I couldn't finish it.
That's funny that you got it to break. Now I'm wondering what you did to break it and not.
I went through the whole section in the room the cranes are in almost without ever touching the catwalk.
Interesting.
I used invisible hitboxes for the cranes to move around the level and to launch myself into the air.
Yeah, that's a thing for sure. On this video, not the speed run, but another video, this guy brought the axe into the vent. He took the axe and figured out a way to get back into the vent to break those pieces of wood in the vent. He thought that was the solution. I'd never seen anyone
like
do that,
dude.
Yeah,
I love that so much.
Now I feel bad that we didn't give him an achievement
because I would love to see a speed run of that game.
Yeah, it was only 13 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that.
That's crazy.
That would be awesome. Has anybody done?
I also think that's really humbling for a dev
Oh yeah, that's
to see that someone liked your game enough to like learn how to speedrun it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned a few things he didn't like about it too, but he liked it enough to speedrun it. So
Yeah, that takes time to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about
were you gonna say
iterative?
something?
I was going to say iterative releases. Is that the word? It sounds like I think a lot of us here kind of do a single game, get it done, and then are done. But I had the awesome experience of updating a game for about 3 years that was released on Steam. Yeah, we would do like multiple updates and different builds, and so each one of those builds
Major
had to
updates.
have. Yeah, we did some major overhauls. Yeah, but each one of those needed their own QA testing period, right? So like when we were doing major overhauls, I had this entire list, and I still have it, of every single feature and thing that you could do in the game. And so every single one of those builds, I would add everything to that checklist that we had just added, and then I would run the entire checklist and test every aspect of the entire game and check it off one by one. It would usually take me about massive open universe of procedurally generated planets and stuff. Yeah, it was crazy stuff. So yeah, we got really I got really good at the QA side of things and being able to like crush bugs. And so we always like kind of patted ourselves on the back for releasing such a stable product, right? It felt good to do that.
You should have patted yourself on the back for adding co-op. That was not
couch
needed.
co-op. Yeah.
And it was so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, not even couch co-op, man. I mean, with Parsec, you can play that co-op with anybody.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, it's like super stable, right? Like I'm the type of person that goes out of my way to break games because that's what I like to do.
Right.
And I couldn't break your game.
My favorite thing to do in Just Wall's space games is to use Cheat Engine to change like my mining speed to something like 9 million.
There you go.
Because what I love most about his games is there's no limit on what you can just keep raising the limit until you start breaking the game. Like I had it so I was laying like 1,000 mines every second across the entire map. And just blowing up
zero
the planet
is what it did.
But like letting me do that's where I was talking about like dynamic mechanics, like giving me a mechanic to play with, not limiting me on it, and then just letting me go is one of my favorite things in video games. And I get that out of almost every single one of Just Wall's.
Someone needs to teach you how to mod.
That's a lot of LUA scripting for a lot of games, isn't it?
Yeah, or DLL editing or INI stuff or
Unity games.
I don't think
are
I have
really
the patience. I think that's one of the things me and Rick have talked about this, but the reason why I have a game design document up for this game I've been wanting to make for like 6 years.
Right.
And I just don't have the time. There's so many other things I want to do that I think I'd have more fun with because I like engaging with other people, that I know the type of person I am. If I wanted to learn game dev, that will be all I eat and breathe for like years.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty much.
I'm just not ready to commit into that.
It's dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. Only do it if you want to. That's my advice.
Yeah, and I think there will hit a point where I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna go for it.
I love it, man.
But
like,
I have so many other things I want to do, and I know I couldn't commit the time to actually getting good at it. I feel like it's not something you can do a bit of, then walk away for 2 months, then come back and do a little bit more of, because you're just constantly refreshing your skills at that point.
It goes back to that imposter syndrome too.
Yeah,
because like you don't actually get good. You get good enough to make something, and then you still wish you were better.
Yeah,
it would probably be one of those things I work on and never release, because even if it's like perfect and awesome, I would still be working on it and never release it.
That happens.
I was just going to say, it's funny. I was just reading about this like kind of art manifesto called SOFA, which is what's it stand for? It's start often, finish rarely, where the A in rare forms the A in sofa. But it's kind of the idea of the art manifesto was like, don't even worry about finishing things. Like the whole purpose of production, producing art is to create. So you need to be creating. You need to be pushing that flow constantly.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about how to adjust my own thinking and style to that, because as fun as it is to be like, yeah, I've done 2 projects, I've only done 2 projects. So there's kind of this thing where it's like, oh yeah, I have all sorts of other dreams and ambitions about, things I want to build. And they're just, they're trapped in just that space of being an idea. They're not even a sketch on a page. So I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like, how do I adjust my style of working? Because I want to have a more forward-looking style and a faster speed of movement.
For me, being an artist has really kind of made that easy for me, because I have like a slew of unfinished art pieces like that I carry around with me. Even like I have a painting in my living room I started 10 years ago. Haven't finished it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Art is that
So, and
kind of
that's
way.
just
Yeah.
that's how it goes. I mean,
Mhm.
you're gonna finish some things, and yeah, it might look like I'm someone who doesn't finish things if you look at all the things I haven't finished, but I do finish some things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I hate when you do finish something and you just feel lost.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, well, that's been
Oh,
my
yeah,
main
for
thing
sure.
for like 2 years, and now I have no idea what to do with myself. It's like when you get into a really good show and it's finally over, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to bed for 3 months.
So my advice on that is to have more than one project, and have one that you don't really plan on finishing, one that you do just for fun, one that like my retro baseball. Yeah, I would love to finish it eventually, but I just kept adding to it, and now I'm to the point where like, well, now I need to cut a whole bunch of stuff to actually finish it. But for a long time, I was just adding to it and having fun, and it was
Yeah.
fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For me, that's just like content creation. That's what I go back to if I'm I need to do something different,
Yeah. Go
Mhm.
back.
because there's no end to it, and it's something I enjoy doing. So I always end up just going back to it.
Yeah, I always just have too many projects open, right? Like I have a full-time game that is like about to release on Steam and was just in the Next Fest, but I'm also building a whole different game that's crazy, and I was also putting together an idle game. I really have been wanting to make an idle game, so like yeah, I'm always just working on a whole bunch of crap. And
Mhm.
If you ask me, too many is the perfect number.
yeah. I used to shuffle them to different places. If it was like Game Jam or just like real basic, I'd put them on Game Jolt. If it like had some sustenance to it, I'd put it on Itch. And if I spent like a long time on it, it had a bunch of systems, and it goes on Steam, right? So I kind of like,
A good hierarchy.
yeah, just kind of throw stuff around, right? I'd be like, today I used to do a stream where I would build a game every Sunday, start to finish on
That's
stream.
intense.
And
Whoa.
How long were the streams?
about 7 hours, 8 hours. I have a
That's
game
still
done in
very
8
impressive.
hours. And
Yeah,
then
that's
I'd put them
super impressive.
on Game Jolt, my Game Jolt. They're all still there. And I mean, some of them were great. Some of them were just the stupidest thing I ever made. But
How do we search that?
I think you just
Or
go.
do you not want people to know?
Oh no, absolutely. I think you just go to Game Jolt and search for Just Wall. Actually, no.
Just Wall on Game Jolt. I'm gonna add you.
Yeah.
I'm on Game Jolt.
Are you? Yeah, and I used that for a long time. I just never. I always just put my weird games there, pretty much. Like, and the one that I did specifically. Oh yeah, person going through. Oh come on, quit it with the ad. Person going through an obstacle course. I had my son draw everything. There's one in there that my daughter drew everything, and I put it into a game for on a Sunday. But that really honed my skills with that engine specifically. Is I was starting, every time I'd build it all, right? The player controls and the collisions, and after I did that about 400 times, I kind of know what to do now, right? Fun stuff though. I mean, it can be like improv music. I do improv gaming, right? That's kind of how or game
Hell
dev,
yeah.
improv game dev. Just some weird shit comes out, and I release it, and then I move on, and I learn something.
Did you say that was Game Maker?
Game Maker Studio, yeah, that's what I've been working in. Yeah. I've worked in Unity, and I worked originally in what's the one? Unreal. I think it was like Unreal 3. So I'm dating myself. It was a long time ago. But,
I remember Unreal 3. I didn't get far in it, but I remember it.
Yeah, I built a couple worlds and stuff, but never any game mechanics. It was when they had Kismet instead of whatever the Blueprints is now. they had a whole different thing. But I mean, I really want to get into 3D game development, but I keep never pulling the trigger, right? Like, just like Michael was talking about, it's like 6 months of work. I know I could sit and like, if I just dedicated 6 months of time, I could figure out Unity and build a game, but I don't know if I have 6 months to mess around right now.
Yep.
Me and a buddy just did a 7-day roguelike challenge. We used Godot. I'd never touched that before.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I don't really have any game engine experience to begin with. I just write stuff from scratch. So
right. That's cool though. Yeah. Like,
yeah. How was that experience with Godot?
Man, it's like whenever you start using some new giant paradigm like that, it's such a what do I even Google to get the answer for what I'm trying to do? Right?
Yeah, it's super overwhelming.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, well, back to the AI. Yeah, like ChatGPT, man. Like
it would tell you what to do.
It's messed up because like even if I Google it, now they've got their own AI that's trying to answer my question before I even get to like Stack Overflow or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
dude, well, I've worked in Godot. I like it and I don't. I get confused in there because of how you have to like assign everything, all the different things in the hierarchy list. I get very confused with that. But again, if I did it 400 times, I probably could just fly through creating a game in there. Do you guys do 2D in Godot?
Yeah. It's a roguelike, so it's like a tile-based, turn-based thing.
That's cool.
Is that playable anywhere?
Yeah, I just put it up like at 3 a.m. last night because that was the end of the thing.
Nice.
It's on my low blast itch. It's called Ipsilial the Minotaur.
Oh, cool.
I'll have to check it out.
Check it out. Yeah, absolutely.
We used somebody's asset pack for the graphics.
Cool.
And halfway through the week, I didn't think we were gonna keep doing it, and then all of a sudden, he just like dumped a whole bunch of work on me, and I was like, "Oh God, I got to participate. I got to finish this dungeon generator."
Yeah. That's cool though. Doing generation of dungeons. That stuff's beyond me. I like I said, I'm not the best programmer, but I love that kind of stuff that randomly generates different worlds. It's just so neat to me.
Yeah, I don't say I have a lot of experience with it, but I find generative content and like emergent behavior is like fascinating.
Yeah.
Like you set up some simple rules and all of a sudden you see stuff you never expected to see.
Yeah. It's
but I'm more on the watching YouTube videos about it side of that stuff, but I try and implement it where I can.
Yeah, this game looks cool. How do you pronounce it? Ipsilial? Ipsilial? There we go. Ipsilial the Minotaur on itch. Everyone should check that out. It looks really cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Yeah, making games is a lot of fun. Sometimes I just get the itch to go into Game Jam, and I go do it. I think I even joined one with you, Rick, and I made Pocket Pool, and I love doing that stuff.
Yeah, I remember playing Pocket Pool.
Yeah, and it's like I never try too hard, and it's just a lot of fun. There's a game out there called it's similar to Factorio, and it's called Dyson Sphere Program, and they have this.
Yeah, I keep meaning to get into that.
So good, but they have this big roadmap, right? And they're a larger company. I think they're Chinese. I think. Don't quote me on that, but they have this big roadmap, and they posted this announcement. They're like, hey, we're going to divert our roadmap, and we're going to do 3 weeks of internal game jams to build awesome. Creativity and fun and culture. I'm like, that is awesome. I'd love to hear that.
There's another dev collective, I think Pancake Delassou, who committed to doing a full game every month, and a lot of their games have ended up being like hits. Which always surprised me. I don't know. I can't even begin to imagine how much structure must go into a dev plan like that, because as far as I know, they've never deviated.
Yeah, listeners might know Shotgun King, The Final Checkmate, is on Steam.
I love that game.
That's by the devs we're talking about here. Yeah, I've got that one.
I did testing for them, and that was kind of interesting. Just because you don't have a lot of time to make a report for a game like that. It comes out in a month.
Yeah. I mean, they do have a small team, but I think only 1 or 2 people work on a game at a time, and then they've got other people working on another game, so that way they can kind of stagger their releases, I think is the way they do it. I would love to interview them, but I'm not sure that they're English speaking, or if that's their first language.
Can I have my wife as a translator?
That would be interesting. But yeah, that's a good example of what rapid prototyping, right?
I think it's just limitation breeds creativity. Like when you set a deadline for yourself, you can make some of the coolest, weirdest stuff that you might be able to bring back as a full-fledged project sometime.
That's one of the main tenets of chiptune.
Go further in the
limitations breed creativity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel that way about homebrew as well. In fact, when I started with GB Studio, that was the reason why I picked that up, is because I was doing this really deep stuff in Unity for little screamies, and I just wanted to do something simple and easy. You know, something where you couldn't do 3D. You know, you couldn't do this crazy stuff. You kind of had to work with the limitations of Game Boy as well. I think there's kind of this Studio. And it worked really well for me. It was
interesting facet. The fact that GB Studio is so accessible means that so many people come up to it and they're just like, well, how can I make this game? And whatever the idea they have in their head is like substantially more complex than a straightforward implementation in GB Studio would be, right? Maybe it's something you could grind out pretty quick in Godot, but it's not going to work there. So there's this interesting kind of thing where I think a lot of people are showing up to GB Studio and maybe bouncing off it because of the high degree of constraint. The tool itself is so the tool is so easy to use, but the things you can create with it are so constrained that I think a lot of people bounce off that.
It's a puzzle in itself. Yeah.
I believe that. I've also met a couple people who were just found the tool itself inspiring. Like they don't think they would have ever made a Game Boy game or even had the inclination to without like seeing somebody else playing around with it. For sure.
I mean, myself included. I would have never made a Game Boy game if GB Studio wasn't such a one-stop shop for so much of the toolchain stuff and or such a sleek presentation. I kind of waxed and waned about that in the interview I had with Rick on episode 25. But I definitely think that the GB Studio is like it's a high watermark for homebrew tools. One of the things that I've noticed now is people use the word GB, or they use the name GB Studio to mean like an accessible toolkit.
Wow.
Like I was just lurking in the N64 Discord, I don't know, it was a couple months ago, and someone showed up and was like, hey, when are we going to have GB Studio for N64? They're not even saying, when are we going to have Unity? When are we going to have Godot? Like GB Studio is the thing that people say because they're like, they're pointing at that and saying that toolkit's so comprehensive and so straightforward and so accessible. I want that. When can we get that? Right?
Poor Nest Maker.
It's funny. Like Nest Maker, and I don't know anything. I've never used Nest Maker. I only know it by reputation. That it kind of has this clunky reputation. So it's like, oh, it's a paid tool, but it's not maybe the premium you'd expect from a paid tool. Whereas GB Studio seems to have this kind of clean reputation by just kind of I think by the fact that it is kind of libre and free. Just kind of avoided that. Whatever bugs were present were kind of like, oh, okay, well it's free, and then
it does have bugs.
Yeah. But
that's something argument I come into myself when like earlier I talked about a dev putting out a free game. I don't think just because something is free means you can cheap out on the quality of it.
Oh yeah.
I think that's like a lazy excuse for just half-assing something.
Yeah.
It's free is not a valid excuse to me when I run into something like that.
I think it's interesting because there's like a tension about that I feel as a developer. Because on the one hand, I do agree. I think we can hold tools that are free of charge to the same standard we hold paid tools. But it's also it's hard for me because sometimes I see people and there's a great sense of entitlement that I see in people when they'll say like, well, why don't you do this, or you need to fix this, and it's like this person has a life. Like Chris Maltby and the GB Studio team have a life. And they don't have to go implement the thing that you
I think that's another big thing that I've noticed, or at least I get the impression that a lot of devs don't understand. And it's like kind of heartbreaking, but it's the reality. The people who aren't devs that are just buying your game, they don't give a shit how much time it takes you.
Yeah.
They really
Or
don't.
how much effort it took or anything like that. They care about the price. They care if the product's good.
Yep.
That's it. And it's kind of like I said, it's kind of heartbreaking, but it is the reality. Like I go and I'll make like a bunch of like a retro album and I'll release it and it'll get shit on or no one will even care about it or stuff like that. Or people ask me, hey, will you make this? And they have no idea how much time it takes and they don't care. They just want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that a lot of devs take it very personally, but sometimes you gotta understand that to the consumer who's purely a consumer, they don't care how much time it takes or what you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent point.
It's a harsh reality of a lot of, I find, creative hobbies or work.
I mean, it's true of any product, right? Like when you're in a store, you don't think about, what you're holding in your hand. You're just like, do I want this or not? Like there's every single product on any shelf has like a crazy story behind it,
Yeah, and if you paid money for it, then you are entitled to a comment if there's an issue with it. Or a nasty email.
Yeah.
I think you're entitled to feedback, but I still don't think just because someone paid for it means that their feedback is valuable. I've definitely seen a lot of that in Steam reviews where someone dislikes it because it's from their own kind of explanation, not the game they were looking for. Like they were looking for a different game.
Yep. Yeah, Steam reviews are crazy. Just crazy, but they're also kind of entertaining sometimes, but for the most part just crazy.
Probably similar to YouTube comments, right? Like
yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, you off the wall.
I have a hate relationship with reviews and the discussion boards for Steam. I don't I don't go there anymore.
Yeah, like I still read reviews, but I always take it with a grain of salt. With Little Screamies, I think we got 21 reviews, and only one of them was negative. And it was funny because,
which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. But the one negative review was because they thought we ripped off Poppy Playtime because we have
that's not a real
event in our game, and there's a vent in Poppy Playtime. So, okay, there's vents.
I hope they don't look around their house. The architects ripped off Poppy's Playtime.
Yeah, pretty much.
My favorite bad review was I was running the Kickstarter for Guntner, and like I barely even had a video game. All I had was like a ship on the screen that could shoot like 3 different enemies. And I got a write up in Nintendo Life, and one of the comments was just plainly, "The game looks bad."
I hate that so much.
And I'm like, I can't argue with the guy because there's barely even a game there. You're like, yes, it looks terrible. I can't believe people are pledging for this thing right now.
Wow. I had a similar experience when I first uploaded Retro Spaceball to itch. And I always bring this up. I've mentioned it on the podcast probably a couple times before. But one person got a hold of me on Discord and told me that the game made them want to kill themselves. And I was just like, oh, okay. But, what I said was like, thank you for your feedback. I'm sorry it didn't live up to your expectations. And I just kind of like left it at that. And then they responded with actual feedback that was useful. And I think it's because I kept a cool head and because I was able to just like roll with the punches, like they realized that like, oh, well, maybe I'll help this guy out kind of thing.
That's kind of an interesting thing too, because I've definitely chose to not buy a game regardless of its quality because of how a dev reacted in reviews to when they comment back to the reviewer. There's been sometimes I've seen a dev get like brutally defensive about something, and I've been like, I'm not even going to give this person money.
Yeah. No, I feel that too.
Like recently, every once in a while, the Orange Island backers just start freaking out because Ted barely ever gives out any updates, and we're like 6 years deep since the Kickstarter, so like they're justified. And like I'm not even in charge of the product or project, and like Man, it's a real struggle not to like just jump in there and be a total ass.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think is actually interesting that Steam added is an alert to let you know if an early access game has not had an update in like 8 months.
Oh, wow.
So, like for Exanima, which is a game I have done a lot of streams on, it's kind of a love-hate with that because I think the devs have kind of lost the plot on it. I mean, they're not supposed to be making Exanima, but they now have an alert on their game page letting people know that it hasn't been updated. It's an early access game that has not been updated in 8 months. So if you buy it, be prepared. This could be the only version you get.
Explain a little bit more on that for the listeners. I know what you're talking about, but on the topic of Kickstarters, I think this is kind of an interesting story.
Well, so Exanima is not the game the devs were supposed to be making. There was a game I funded called Sui Generis, almost a decade ago now, that was going to be this open world action RPG that was 100% physics run. So like you could be running through the woods and trip over a branch and actually fall over. It's so funny to watch. But then the developer said, do you want to wait for Sui Generis or do you want to play something now while we test and perfect features? People wanted something now, so they made Exanima, which is supposed to be a single dungeon out of the entire game. And they only communicate through their Discord, which I don't agree with. If you have a game on Steam, you need to be letting people know who aren't going to join a Discord, which there are a lot of people, what's going on. But every piece of news pretty much they have released has been about Exanima. They're doing this stuff in Exanima. And to the point where people are now saying Sui Generis will never happen. But that might be great I had an argument with someone about this recently, actually, because they said, well, people bought Exanima, so they are getting the real game. And I was like, yeah, but Exanima is not a game. It's supposed to be a tech demo, like pretty much a look at what the game you're going to be getting is. And that is where Exanima kind of sits, where you need to be. They pretty much lost the plot with their Kickstarter. They had people like me fund this game, and now people don't even know if it's ever going to be made because Exanima has seen so much success.
So, and just to cue in our listeners here, Sui Generis had 6,931 backers pledge £160,000. So that's quite a bit of money.
It was not like a small thing, and I get what they're talking about, but when you see how long it's taken them to work on Exanima, I now don't even believe that the devs can produce what I've backed anymore. Because this is supposed to be, Exanima's been worked on for, I'm just going to quickly check when that game came out.
So it says 2015 on Steam, and then it's got 11,070 very positive reviews. Or no, that's all the reviews. It's very positive, but then recent reviews say mixed, and then there's 73 in the last 30 days.
So it's almost been 10 years.
But it's still in early access.
Well, and even then, it's not supposed to be the game. It's supposed to be like it's supposed to be one dungeon in the open world action RPG that we're supposed to be getting. So I don't even know.
And then the note says the last update made by the developers was over 16 months ago. So that's, yeah.
Oh, wow. So I guess maybe 8 months is the point where it starts telling you, but I didn't realize that it told you when the last update was. That I like that even more, honestly. Because I feel like early access can be a fantastic tool, but there are people who are making others dislike any game that has the early access title, which isn't fair. Like Subnautica was early access. I believe Hunt Showdown was early access. That's a widely popular game now. There have been tons of early access games that have been done right. And I don't think it's fair for anyone who marks their game as early access to immediately have almost a negative perception because they're early access.
Some of these reviews are very interesting. This one here, 1 step forward, 5 steps back, the game, or development hell simulator. And then this person
that
says they
last one,
love the
yeah.
game and everything about the world and the devs have created. However, you should not buy this game because it hasn't been updated in 16 months and it's still early access. Yeah, so
Yeah, it's one of those games where they would bring out the phrase "dead game," like it's a dead game. But the thing is, and this is
Vaporware.
what I was talking about earlier, the devs communicate quite a bit on their Discord. But if you look at the news for the game on Steam, they never talk about the development or anything of the project to the actual people on Steam purchasing it, which is going to be the majority of your people. Like only a handful of people are going to join your Discord.
Yeah.
it's true.
So I don't know. I'm salty about that. I'm still mad because I gave quite a bit of money to the Exanima devs, or sorry, see what I'm even doing? Exanima devs, the sui generis devs, and I still have not seen an inkling of what I paid for. Like, what good does your name in the credits do if the game never comes out?
That's a good point.
So
I was gonna say, Puke, you did a Kickstarter. You probably have something to say about Kickstarter.
Well, I was just gonna say like that. There's a similar sentiment that I was seeing yesterday. As a handful of people on the Orange Island Discord were being disgruntled about lack of updates, and like they're, they don't want to use Kickstarter anymore, is what they're saying. I'm just like, geez, like I've backed 20 some projects on Kickstarter, and yeah, a couple of them didn't go through. It just like it just happens.
But Kickstarter allows refunds, doesn't it?
No,
If
no,
the project isn't finished. Oh no, it
no.
doesn't.
And they tell you in print before you say yes, charge my credit card. Like it's bold text. Hey, you're not guaranteed to get anything here. Like,
Yeah.
people forget that, but
It only takes when you're funded, right? Or when the Kickstarter's funded.
Yeah,
Is that how
it
it
has
works?
to be funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once it's funded, you can't get your money back, even if they don't deliver what you've put money into.
And I will say, Sui Generis was the last game I ever funded on Kickstarter because my experience with that was so negative that I have never done one since. I've bookmarked the Kickstarter page so I could go back and see when the game was on Steam, but I don't do Kickstarters anymore, and I don't do Patreons because that one's even worse in my opinion.
So as a dev, I when Kickstarter was first popular, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Maybe I'll do a Kickstarter. But now I see it as more of like a second job, right? It sounds like a huge pain in your butt, and then a lot more pressure than
it's
maybe a publisher.
It's really intense setting up a Kickstarter correctly, and yeah, you can talk about like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, man.
I
You
don't
gotta
know,
have a good video too, right? Like, I mean, it's everyone goes and instantly watches the video, isn't that how
It's
it works?
everything. The video, you got to have like the good. Everything's got to be in line, right? The amount of money you're
Right.
asking for, and the product, and the people you've got working on your team, or if you're by yourself, how many projects you've got to show that like your portfolio to show that you can do it. And then there's the things that you get, the rewards. That all of that has to be like together. It has to work.
Some of the biggest, like my favorite Kickstarter pages, they're almost passion dumps. Like it has to be concise and easy to navigate, but it's almost like the dev just like vomiting everything they love about the project and what they want the project to be and backing up like why they're excited about it. Like when they talk about the story, like going balls to the walls, like, I don't know, just hype. I like seeing that passion in the devs. That's something that makes me follow them. If I see a dev that it looks like they're just trying to put out another game, I don't follow them as much. But if I see someone who loves talking to the community, loves talking about their game, I will follow that dev.
It
So we
definitely
should all go
requires charisma.
We should all kickstarted the Chronicles of Illyria. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what?
I think
For me, the biggest like loss that I've seen when it comes to indie games was Kin's Chronicles. Rick might know the game.
Kin's Chronicles? Kins?
Yeah, I think it was Kin's or Kin Chronicles, which was just some guy who was making a final, like a RPG style game, turn-based RPG, but you could recruit any of the enemies, including bosses, onto your team. And if you like recruited one that you already had, you could use that new recruit to buff the one you already had. And then the dev just, life happens and they stop working on it. and that was like the
I
biggest
remember
loss
you
for
playing
me.
this. I remember you playing that game. Yeah.
That was, I think about that game, no joke, at least once a
I
month.
thought the dev was
I
in your
hope that developer's
stream.
doing well.
Was he in your
He
stream?
is.
Yeah.
I still talk to him every once in a while, and life's just life, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, it's hard too because you get a project out and you're super passionate about it, and then you dump it on Steam and you're excited. You do your posts, you do your marketing, and then it just kind of dwindles away,
Yeah,
right? Like it
I
gets
think he
sad.
actually changed his Steam page to say that it wasn't actively being worked on anymore. That
It
was
does say
heartbreaking
early
to read.
access. Yeah. I've never released
But,
a game in early access. I've looked at it and thought about clicking it. Even the ones
I don't think I have
updated.
any friends have. Any of the friends I have done an early access game. I don't even think Rick has a Steam page for Retro Spaceball.
I do, but I don't have anything up on there yet. I don't have a demo up on there. I'm actually planning to rebrand the game entirely, change the name,
I
change
like the new
trailer.
name a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Blast Orb is the
I like it
name
more
I'm
than
working
Retro
on.
Spaceball.
Yeah, me too. It took a while to come up with.
That's good. That's cool.
Yeah.
See, I love that you're working on that project just like over a long period of time while other projects are happening. I think that's super
I
cool.
will intentionally ask Rick about Retro Spaceball just to ensure he's still working on it because I like that game.
Well, and I've been
Recently I
following
tried to
Rick
do like a
and-
roguelite thing, and it was working, but then it wasn't working, and then it's like, well, this is taking a lot more time than I expected. I'm not a great programmer. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm an artist first and foremost. And I've learned, I love game design, so I learned programming to figure out game design. But yeah, making lists and stuff like that, and then looping through the list to do things, and like I've got it working,
Well-
but then all of a sudden the gameplay is lacking, and it's like,
One of the things I will say is, and I've noticed this from doing work for Free Lives, they kind of, from what I've seen, and I can talk about this now because the games are out where they've done this, but if they are in development and they start working on, like you said, a roguelike version, they'll embrace it and they'll make it a bonus game mode.
yeah.
And I don't know why they commit so much time to it, but then at the end, when you're playing the release game, you're like, holy crap, they got this like other game mode and it's just as like fleshed out and cared about as the main game mode. And it does add a lot to the game. It's just for something to come back to and do.
And that was my original intention with Retro Spaceball's roguelite mode. And then more recently I was like, well, maybe I should just make the whole game roguelite. And now I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should just leave that behind for a sequel or something like in the future.
So how do you approach, do you ever get inspired by, like, I think we were talking about Demon Tilt?
Oh yeah, Devil's Crush.
Like,
and
do you ever
Demon's Tilt. Demon?
Yeah, do you ever get like inspired by those? And if, as a dev, when you find a game similar to yours with features that you like, is there a line you draw personally where you start to kind of feel like, do you ever worry that you're copying, or do you understand that inspiration can be just an inspiration?
Well, yeah, I mean, those are kind of two different questions. First of all,
Yeah.
on Demon's Tilt. So I was playing a lot of Devil's Crush when I came up with Retro Spaceball, and I was like, man, I really want to make a spiritual successor to Devil's Crush. I want to make like a 3-screen tall pinball game that has shoot 'em up elements. And then the longer I thought about that, I thought about it for at least a couple months. And I was like, you know what? Someone else is going to make this first, and they're going to be better at making it, and they're gonna beat me to the market. So I better just do something like more innovative and different that no one else was going to think of. And that's when I came up with Retro Spaceball. And then sure enough, Demon's Tilt was made.
Right.
I really I wish that wasn't such a sentiment, because there can be games that are really similar but just different enough to be their own thing.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned the game earlier, but look at like Vampire Survivors. That has like spawned a whole series of releases that you could say are copies, but they're like a guilty pleasure of mine. And there's tons of games that, yeah, okay, they're like extremely similar, but they're different enough that I'll still sit there and play it for 40 hours.
And that brings us to part 2 of the question, where like, where do you draw the line of mechanics, right? Because honestly, you can take mechanics. It's not stealing. I mean, as long as it's not patented, you can use that mechanic. And so that's the way I look at it. There is no line unless it's a patent. The patent is the line.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, don't throw Pokeballs. Just don't do that. That's going to be patented. patented.
You can use the arrow now, though. That patent expired, right? The
arrow above the
taxi
head.
arrow.
Right, yeah. I'm pretty sure you can throw square cubes at something to capture it, but not a round circle.
So what about Tetris? That's crazy, right? There's all of these Tetris lights coming out, and yet people have been sued over this, and yet they still keep coming out.
They
I don't
still
know.
keep. People
it's
just
weird.
keep doing it.
You can't stop creativity. You can try your damnedest, but people are still going to do it, and they'll find ways to do it.
I love Tetris likes. In fact, I've been playing this one called Tetris Sweeper. It's a mix of Minesweeper and Tetris, and it's fantastic. Wow. It's on itch right now, but it's also coming soon to Steam. I wishlisted it on Steam, but you can play it for free on itch. I recommend it. It's fun. It's like a mouse and keyboard game, so you're using the mouse to play Minesweeper, but you're also using the keyboard to drop the blocks, right?
Holy crap.
It's pretty crazy.
Interesting. Definitely. Yeah, I love mashup games like that. I mean, pretty much any game I've ever worked on, I would say is, I'm not going to say stealing, but it's I get inspired by some other game and I'm like, oh, that's such a cool concept. And then you just kind of throw a different theme on top of it. Like,
we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything came from Mario and Duck Hunt dual cartridge, bro. Like, everything came from well, for me, it was more like VIC-20s, but like...
Oh, damn.
You know.
Talking my language.
Yeah, old school shit. Like, put a tape in and type some crap and run, and then it throws up one of those text adventures. Like...
Oh, yeah.
If you can handle a text adventure, you can handle anything.
Yeah, my first console experience was the 5200.
The 5200. Yeah. That's good. So it was like middle blobs. It wasn't the total blobs. It was like better looking blobs. But it wasn't 7800.
It was the same blobs. As the arcade, right? Because
at your house.
Because I didn't really know the difference yet. But now looking back, it's like, okay, I can see the difference. The 5200 ports were playable, but they were not as good as the arcade.
Missile Command might be more similar.
Yeah.
So that was a great game.
Well, the 5200 had those joysticks that everyone hated, but my parents had the trackball, which everyone loved.
So, that's cool.
Yeah, it was like the size of the console.
Yeah, no, I have it. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are great, man. They're nostalgic to me because Atari games were, dare I say it, fucking impossible. Like, like even going back to them now.
The coin
most of them.
Yeah, so crazy. But man, I loved Pitfall. It was like my jam, dude.
On the 2600.
Yeah, I love Pole Position. All those classics.
My dad was really into Pole Position.
Kaboom.
Joust. I still play Joust, man.
Right.
Kaboom. There you go.
So many good games, and when we were making Turin, we were kind of like, it's like Dig Dug, but Metroid, but Minecraft. I don't even know. Yeah, it's like weird, right? You just start. That's an interesting parallel.
I never thought about that. Dig Dug.
Yeah, I was really into Dig Dug when I was a kid. I liked that game. And now I look back on it, it's so hard and so basic and difficult. Like, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to even get to like level 3. Like, it's...
Yeah, without dying and got to pump them up.
Squished by a rock, trying to squish a dragon.
So that's what I love. I love taking the things that inspired me, those games that inspired me, and I try to spit them out into something, I guess, more modern, but
I'm in that
a lot of fun.
I think it's really cool.
That kind of goes to what I was saying, though, where with homebrew games, you have to make a different type of game now than you made back when those consoles came out.
It's so true.
Because the games that we were playing back then, they're just not even close to the same as what you have to make now for a game to be considered acceptable to people.
So there's a whole bunch of different types of game designers, but the one thing that kind of ties us all together is that we all love problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And you all suffer.
And we all
suffer. Yeah, we all do suffer. Yeah.
They need a support group for indie devs.
I'm sure there is one somewhere. Some Discord hidden away somewhere.
I guarantee it.
But yeah,
but we were talking about Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say that, yeah, that's part of the challenge, right? And that challenge is kind of what draws people in, right? Because you want to make something that, relates to your nostalgia and your childhood and all that stuff. And you want to bring people into what experience you had and what experience you're trying to get out there. But also it needs to be palatable. So that's the challenge. How do you turn that into something that's palatable today?
Yeah, and sometimes I'll challenge myself, like old games, to build one where the screen's not moving, right? Like a lot of older games,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it was a single screen
One screen
and
game.
like Pac-Man, right? Like
Donkey Kong.
Dig Dug's one of them, right?
Galaga.
Tetris is another. And it's really challenging to try to build something in those constraints, because you're like, I'm used to having this big open world, and that's what makes it interesting. How do you keep it interesting on one screen, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of
That's
it's a
true.
trick.
my NES game Guntner is basically a one screen game. Like the background scrolls that's the star field, but you're not interacting with it at all. It's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Asteroids meets a Euro shmup, right?
Yeah.
That's a little bit. I mean, there's no asteroids,
The
but
game gave me stress. I was like dodging stars because I wasn't sure what would kill me and what wouldn't.
yeah, it is a little confusing at first. But once you realize you're supposed to pick up the power ups and shoot the enemies, right?
Plays really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one too. I got it on my Miu Mini, so I pick it up when I'm on the toilet sometimes.
It is a short game. I was we were talking about the whatever that metric was earlier, dollars per hour of gameplay or something. I'm like, well, most people play through it and beat it in under 15 minutes on their first try. So
Yeah, exactly. Was
It's
it
a skill
15
thing, right?
cents?
Like you
What
can
is that?
beat
Like,
Dark Souls in 4 or 5 hours if you're good enough.
yeah,
yeah. Well,
But I think that was really a big thing for older games is they had to make them really hard to make the purchase worth it.
yeah.
yeah, you couldn't beat it in one sitting,
yeah,
Teenage
that'd be a
Mutant Ninja Turtles,
quarter.
I'm looking at you. That's
It'd be a quarter for 15 minutes then.
Yeah, I
I
definitely
know.
definitely see like the people saying games just shouldn't be like that anymore because it's a antiquated concept, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'd rather play a game that demands that level of playership and like dedication to it than a game that I just play
Actually-
blow through in like half an hour or something.
Wasn't this one of Rick's topic discussions? What should a difficulty ramp look like?
Oh,
It's true.
Right.
And you know what's funny? I was in a Twitch stream the other day, and we were talking about old school arcade games, and they were like, "Why don't you use generative AI to make it more difficult so the player can't win?" It's like,
what do I
that's
need to
what
use
they were
AI
doing,
for
but
that?
without generative AI.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like what
Just run
coin
the
munchers are, right? They like Pac-Man, for example, just gets faster and faster and faster and faster until it's like really, 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 really hard, And there's so many just like that. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, what a difficulty ramp should look like, and I think there are multiple designers who have kind of like drawn pictures of it even, and it's basically a wavy line on an incline, on like a 45-degree angle incline, but it's a wavy line, and on either side of this wavy line, you've got too challenging above it, and then you've got too boring at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
you
interesting.
waver between becoming too challenging, and then you go back down to too boring, and then while you're doing this, you're constantly going up just a little bit in difficulty or in challenge, right? So that's to me what it should look like, and I think it was what's his first name? I can't remember, but Shell Games wrote a book on this. Jesse Shell, yeah.
I can't remember who I was watching on YouTube, some game developer, and they were talking about, for some reason in their games, they try to throw almost all the mechanics at the player in the first like the first level is really easy, and then on level 2 and 3 or whatever, they like just throw all the mechanics at the player that they have to master right then, and then the rest of the game is just fun for them. And I'm just like, sounded so weird to me because I'm very aware of the 45-degree up and down wave concept.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
interesting.
I think the progression of mechanics can almost artificially make your game seem like it has so much more scope. That's something I have always felt with just like exploring different games. Is if I'm like 8 hours in and you're still introducing like new mechanics, it makes the game feel bigger. It makes it feel more complex than it might be. But I always have those are memorable games to me. Because I feel like if you hit the player with all the mechanics all at once and you say, here, this is what you have, master it, it can start to get a little boring. And then you flip to games like, let's say, the Souls series, where they do give you the few mechanics you actually have at the beginning, and then they counteract that by giving you weapons with very different play styles. So introducing a new weapon then becomes the thing, where you're getting something with a completely different play style or a different build. But I think having also progression of the mechanics and how a player feels like something's changing has a big impact on me with the games.
I think there's room for both, and the reason why I say this is because I play a lot of like retro games where they had the mechanics and those were the mechanics, and then everything else in the difficulty curve or the difficulty ramp was just how do you make the game harder after that.
Yeah,
They didn't add
absolutely.
any mechanics. They added more enemies, or they made the enemies faster, or they added things that made it difficult, like mines or like
I think
Robotron.
Celeste.
You don't get any more mechanics. Celeste is another good example.
Yeah, it all comes down to game balancing, and it's actually one of my most enjoyed parts of creating a video game is like that whole balance of all the stuff. Like this last one, I literally balanced a survival game, right? So everybody knows what a survival game is. You got to eat, you got to drink. It's hot, it's cold, right? You got to.
This is for Hunter's Path. We're talking
for Hunter's Path. Yeah, I mean it's a survival game with crafting
You can
and
pee,
items.
you can poop, drink.
You can't yet, no, but you should. You should be able to. Writing that down as a next feature for you, Mike.
Don't. That's like purely a
just
Michael
balancing
fever
all that
dream.
is, yeah. Balancing all that is really fun. It's very hard though, because you have to start by going, okay, so how many sticks and stones should be laying around? Right? Because as soon as you have too many sticks and too many stones, it's too fast for the player, and they're like, "Oh, now I got everything I need." And then you start limiting it, and you have to find the perfect balance for that, and then every other aspect of the game, right? Because now you have a pickaxe.
So do you use like spreadsheets for this then? What's your technique like for balancing this?
So I think the initial way is, we write down all the recipes and what can be crafted, and that's on a spreadsheet. And while I'm doing that, and it's basically me trying to get in there and do all that. I'm trying to think about player progression, right? Like when you find this item, now you can craft this thing, which is higher tier. So that means you need to find this other thing later. So you have to time all these things so that it works out. Did we do it perfectly? No. Is there a perfect balance for a survival game for every player? Absolutely not.
No. Perfect.
That's why there's
subjective.
Yeah, that's why there's 72 survival games in my wish list, right? Because there's so many of them, and they all have a slightly different balance and some pros and some cons, right? But that balancing it's a challenge, but it truly is the game. Right? I could replace all the art, I could replace all the music, but that balance within that code of how many things it takes to craft this and getting to this too soon, and that the balance that we've come up with how long it takes you to become dying of thirst and dying of hunger, all those balances, all those pieces together could be reskinned, and it'd be a totally different game with the same balance. That's what I'm most proud of, right? Is that balance. After the spreadsheet, though, it's all play testing, and then it's those tweaks, right? You're playing through, and you're like, I think I got to this too quick. I'll do an hour of play testing just to say, nope, that's not the build. You know what I mean?
So then, after that point, it's all in your head, and
then it goes into Trello. Yeah, then it's all just goes into Trello, and both of us play the game, and we kind of make minor tweaks. So you basically kind of get it balanced. You get it balanced okay. but then a lot of stuff's OP or underpowered. Is that UP? I don't know if they call it that. But yeah, then you have to nerf some things to make it work. And it's a lot to balance. And I've made a lot of more retro style games, and there's a lot less balancing in it, right? When you have just 3 lives and some coins to collect, as opposed to 170 items that can be crafted into even more things. That's like your mind just goes like when that happens. But
Yeah,
but then when it's all done, it's cool. It's cool. And then,
it's very cool.
the biggest problem with making a survival game is there's 72 survival games on my wish list, right? How do you even stand out in that crowd? And you just don't. That's what I'm learning, right? You make your game, you make it how you think it is, and you make it so you can play it. Really, at the end of the day, you make it so you can be like, I made this, and I'm going to play it now. And then you hope others.
And then there's marketing.
And then,
So
oh man,
we should probably chat about marketing a little bit. I mean, I know that it sucks and no one likes doing it, and we're game designers, so we're probably not even great at it. But without it, Michael might not even hear about it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that Next Fest was great because of if you can get a game and you can get your demo in a good state, and you could get it on Next Fest, it actually is in a smaller group of games then. Because the hardest part about marketing on Steam is that there's just so many games. How do you stand out, right?
Absolutely.
How do you stand out? And we all stand out, and our friends play it, and people I know and colleagues on here and stuff. Like, I'll try anybody's game who's here on this podcast. Absolutely. I'll give you feedback. I'll even buy it for $5, $10, $20, whatever you're selling it for, right? And we always have that local, like, close marketing that we're good at. But how do you reach into the upper tier? How do you become that? You talked about lethal company, right? How do you become that lethal company
I have
development
to say,
studio?
Rick said at the beginning that I might not know about, but if you take everything Just said and change it to content creation, it's the exact same.
Oh, it's the same thing. Yeah. Same with being in a band and promoting your own band.
You have to. It's
same thing.
It's all the same thing. I kept kind of sitting here smiling, listening to it, because if you change the game dev to content creation, it's the exact same thing. How do you become the big person? How do you reach that higher tier of like person you're looking for? It's the
get out of your little friend zone. Get out of the friend zone.
Your friends and family
will
always watch your shit until they stop.
Well, then I meet people like Rick, right? And he's been helping me, and he's played games and giving me feedback and invites me to podcasts. So now I'm always on his streams and giving him crap. And so you get this like close-knit friends.
Yep.
And I feel like that's what developers and content creators are good at. We're all good at getting that close-knit friends. The hardest part about marketing is outside of the friend zone.
Yeah, it's right? doing the actual marketing.
You guys are all super cool for hanging out in my stream, by the way.
Oh,
but I'm sorry in advance that no one's gonna hear this.
Well, no, that's I just genuinely find your streams interesting because I'm not a game dev.
Right.
But when I'm listening to kind of you speaking, you're talking to yourself, I pick up a lot from that. Like the closest I ever came to actually making the game that I wanted to make was from listening to your streams, because you made game dev seem fun and seem like a puzzle I wanted to solve.
Oh man, it is.
That's what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's the best game out there. Like when I'm in the game hole and I don't know what game to play, because I love playing games, it's game dev is what I'm like. That's what I'm craving, actually.
I'm like
weird
95% game dev and 5% gaming. Like,
are you? Wow, yeah. See, you have a superpower, man. That's a superpower.
I don't know. I think programming in general is just like one of the only ways I can feel like I have control in my life.
Yeah. When you said you built some engines and stuff from the ground up, and have you built like applications? Have you done development outside of gaming before?
Well, I learned how to do what you call a lamp stack, PHP and stuff, to make Battle of the Bits. I taught myself that stuff, and that got me into the working for a couple startups. And yeah, so I don't know. After that, I had some savings, and I spent a time trying a lot of different things. But yeah, making Gunter, I made that engine from scratch, Holland's 6502 assembly language, and I've also spent a lot of time messing with C and SDL. So
Also, real quick, Langle wrote his own audio engine for that game too.
That's epic, dude. That's so amazing.
thanks. I had this idea that it only needed to be 24 kilobytes, which would help me finish it faster, and I just wound up spending like the last month or two just fighting that. So the soundtrack is mostly generative. It uses an algorithm to produce it.
Oh, that's awesome.
When I was in school,
And it
they
sounds
taught me
great.
how to program, and I did have to program for my course. They taught me everything I needed to start making games, but for some reason I gravitated towards calculators that no one will ever use. That's by far my favorite thing to make. I love math, so I never actually started working on any game. I would make these obscure calculators, like how much force do you have to exert to get a swish with a basketball in a net that's like this far away, and then I make a calculator for it, and I loved it. So I have learned the basics of how to code and the structure and stuff like that, but I never did anything game dev related with it.
We'll make a game dev out of you yet.
Yeah, we'll
gonna
get you
happen.
there, man. Yeah. All it's gonna take is you're gonna type like your first little like code that actually works, and you'll be like hooked.
Well, I get that. Like, I
escape.
loved
World.
figuring out why something wasn't working. My big thing was optimization. I loved figuring out how to make something faster, how to make something smaller. And
optimization is
I
important.
would focus
in a
on
big
that
game, for
so
sure.
much. I also would write my fucking comments like a diary entry. Like that was a ton of fun for me. Was
good.
building out a program like a story. And
I worked with a coder who he was, a younger coder, but he's good. He's better than me at coding. But I was managing him because I had spent more time in teams. And one thing that he said was that he didn't realize that comments were as important as they were, mostly because he was a solo dev, but because he also felt like it was an indication that you weren't very good.
Well, for me,
which is the opposite.
I mean, that's how I was
so
when I
hard
was young.
without.
I used to
wasn't
index my comments like I do in my reports. So I would have like a list of all the like functions, all of the like every single loop, every statement would be indexed in this list. So if something broke and I had a kind of an idea of what it was, I could immediately jump to the comment that explained how it worked and take a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
Coding is really cool. I enjoy it. I wish I was better at it. I wish I knew. I started with that game maker language, right? And it's got all these kind of they're like commands almost that are doing code in the back. Like, so I didn't really learn like how to write the collision code.
Well, C# has stuff like that too.
Does it?
Right?
Yeah. It has the functions and stuff.
Right. Mm-hmm. Built-in functions.
Yeah, and see, I just need to sit down and learn that stuff.
Making your engine from scratch, then you would have to do that.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just those things aren't just built in there for you, and but the whole idea of like piecing it all together and writing the code and then playing it and then seeing if it's working and then being able to actually fix a problem is so rewarding. I mean, fixing a bug is so rewarding. Yeah. Like, especially a nasty one.
Yep.
Right. Like.
Right. Yeah. You're pulling your hair out, and for maybe a few hours, even or longer, days, even.
Yeah.
Or even longer sometimes, and then you finally figure it out. It's just you can't even describe that feeling.
It's just some stupid syntax.
My worst thing was, and I think about this all the time, but it would be this phase of like, it's not working. Why the hell isn't it working? You'd walk away, go make like a hot pocket or grab a coffee and come back, and you're like, it's working, and I don't know why it's working. Yeah. You're in this middle phase of like, I don't know why it's not working. I don't know why it's working, but it's not happening inconsistent enough for me to think it's something wrong.
That's when it's time for sleep, and then it'll come to you in your dreams. That's what'll happen.
We talked about that, dude. You'd walk away from it, and it suddenly starts making sense. But I remember so many times in school being like, this isn't working, but I swear I've done everything right. And then I'd come back and it's working. And I'm like, what is happening?
Gremlins. Gremlins work on it while you're away.
Like the underwear gnomes from South Park.
There you go.
There's still nothing better, though, than like firing up a game that you completed, regardless of the level of effort or the level of quality and polish, and play your way through it.
That was
There's
music
kind of no other
for
feeling,
me, making
right?
music. I think I cried the first time. Like I listened to the first song I made, and it was actually like really good.
Yeah,
it's just like it's surreal. Like I made this.
It's similar
There's
feelings.
definitely a similarity.
Like building music in
But
like
it's
a
a little bit
program
different.
is like moving the
Like-
waves around and editing it and turning up the volume. Like using that software, the DAW, is similar to using a game engine.
Well,
for
also
sure.
like I never
Absolutely.
thought I could be someone who could like I had this music in my head. I never thought that I could be someone who could put that into something other people can listen to. So when it's done and you hear it, but not only hear it, but you like it, like it's something you'll listen to every once in a while. Like that's it's an emotional experience.
Well, yeah, and a lot of
It
people
even
won't
sounds
start.
better the longer you wait, right?
Yeah,
Because when it's like fresh in your mind, it's like you remember making it more.
No, I
than you
totally love
are
listening to the
it,
same 5
right?
second segment for 3,000 times. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm sure your roommates do too.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you gotta use headphones without it. You're just an asshole.
You were talking about the sound for Guntner, and that it was like basically generated by code. Have you worked any more in that, in like procedural music generation?
Oh yeah, a bit. Actually, there's a program I wrote for the VIC-20 that's a wall of sound. I think I made a YouTube video out of it. That was over a decade ago, but
that's cool though. I love that kind of stuff. I've messed around with that kind of stuff before, where I just like they basically just take really small MP3s and it's just the sound, and so then I'll have it like pitch it and all this stuff with code, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I have one keyboard sample and I'm pitching it to the different keys, and then I have multiple of them going on, and then all this code's running, and you can make some pretty chaotic stuff. But
yeah,
I do it in Ableton, but never with code. That sounds really intense with code.
Oh, it's so trippy. Yeah, it's so trippy. I actually have a game out that is all that way.
Music generation.
I mean, yeah. Did you ever, Mike? Did you ever play that game that I made, the Riding Wood?
Yeah, I did. I love every single joke in that game.
Yeah, I don't know if that was two. Two had real music that I wrote, but the first one was all generated by code.
That's
so like every time you play that game, it's not the same song. It's the same sounds, but it's never the same song.
While we are kind of talking about it, I really gotta say I like the acoustic tracks in Hunter's Path a lot. It reminds me of like when I was younger playing Stalker, and you come up to a campfire where someone's playing an acoustic guitar and all these people are sitting around. Like it's a relaxing, dude.
It's funny you bring that up. It was actually the hardest soundtrack I ever did. I actually wrote 3 soundtracks for that game, and I trashed 2 of them.
Well, it's kind of
they just
out of your comfort zone
fit. Well, no, I make a lot of acoustic music. I just couldn't find the vibe that worked for the game. And then I finally was just like, I think it sounds like sitting around a campfire with a guitar or something. I just went totally a way I would never go. And it just seemed to click.
It definitely paid off. I liked that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was much different.
Yeah, did you light an actual fire to get the vibe?
No, well, I mean, in the bowl I did, but that was about it.
There you go.
yeah, I had to get that vibe, but I did it all live, and I didn't, edit anything. It was all just real live.
I liked it because it's. I don't know how this is going to sound, but it's kind of depressing.
Yeah,
like
Seattle,
and that's the
music. Yeah,
that's what reminded me kind of Stalker. It's relaxing, but it's kind of bleak. which fits the game
Yeah.
because all of the POIs in the game are destroyed buildings. Like something obviously happened, and it kind of
Right.
gives this sense of it's cozy, but it's also a little like, I mean, it's the end of times almost.
Right. It was really hard to find that vibe. I've never really struggled with that before. It was the first game I ever kind of struggled there, and I thought I was losing my touch. Right? Like when you're a dev and stuff, you're trying to get all this stuff done. You're like, oh man, am I losing it? Can I not make music? And I'm a musician first. Rick, you probably understand that. Like, I can't lose that skill. That's the one skill I got.
Well, I don't think it's a
games is
skill
tough.
you just
It's like-
master. Like that's something that's constantly developing. So you can't really lose something that you're actively growing.
It's cool to step out of my
So-
comfort zone, though. That was cool. Like it worked.
The way I see it with music and games is it's a lot like music and film. It's
Yeah.
very, very different from like something that you throw on to listen to or something you work out to or something like that. It's made to work with something else.
Right.
And that's what makes it so difficult sometimes.
Well, then just finding that thing that works with the vibe that you have in your head, right? Because I have music in my head all the time. Dude, I have written the sickest metal riffs ever in my mind. If I could just get them down onto recording, it's just like kind of like that, right? Because when you're building your games, you probably have in your mind like the soundtrack. But here's a good question about music, because we're all kind of jack of all trades, right? Kind of coming up with all of our own stuff in these games. Do you ever write the soundtrack first and then build a game to it?
It's kind of worked that way with Retro Spaceball, where I'm kind of doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
But then I go further than I should with one, and then I go pick up the slack with the other kind of thing.
It's a
But yeah, I
teeter-totter
wouldn't say
catching
that
up.
I don't think I've done the music first
So-
ever though. I've definitely come up with sketches though of music.
I have experienced this just because when I do make every album I've ever made is a concept album. And some of them started out as a full-fledged like novel that I wrote that I wanted to make music for, where each track was a chapter. And I have ended up having it go the other direction, where I've made a couple tracks and been like inspired to write this massive story for it, and then developed the rest of the album based off how the story turned out. I have had that.
Yeah. Music's weird that way, that it can kind of come at different points, right?
I think for me,
It's like-
what surprised me the most is once you start making music, there comes a point where, at least for me, you're not even writing it anymore. Like the music is telling you what it wants to be. It's telling you what it wants the next section to be, what the next sound is supposed to be. So you're just following the music. Your general idea got the song
and that's
started,
when you know it's good.
but you're just listening to what the music tells you. I found that to be something I wasn't expecting from making music. I just figured you always had to come up with ideas, but you don't. The music tells you what it wants to be when you're working on it.
And believe it or not, at a certain point, game design is like that too.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, you're still coming up with mechanics and ideas and stuff. But after a while, it's what can I do that this game needs? What does this game need? What can I provide for this game? And it's a relationship between the player and the experience more than it is with the developer and the mechanics.
Absolutely.
If that
That makes
sense.
Yeah, no,
sense.
that totally does make sense.
You know, it's funny. I'm not a musician. I can't play music. I can't read music. Never been able to. But it's very interesting. There are a lot of. In fact, the first game I think I ever tried to make was just directly inspired by an album. It just produced such a vivid image in my mind. I was like, "Oh, this is what it is. This is the thing."
Yeah.
And which album was that?
It was Boards of Canada. They released an album, Tomorrow's Harvest,
Nice.
and that really,
I don't know that album, but I know the
Yeah.
band, Boards of Canada. That's some really cool stuff.
Yeah. It was their, as of now, latest out as of recording, their latest album, which is like over a decade ago. So we'll see if they get around to
Do you
another.
listen to? Do you like Aphex Twin?
Oh yeah, love them. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
classic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny, like obviously that was very powerful, artistic experience. But for a lot of the projects I have kind of sitting in my to-do scrap box, so many of them, the core piece of inspiration it's not an image first, it's a song. That'll be the first thing where it's like, oh, like
Sure.
this song will have like I'll get an idea related to it and be like, oh, that song can put me back right in that mental headspace, in a way that an image just can't.
That's awesome, because then you can actually like listen to something that will bring you back to the core.
Yeah. Which is very funny because, like, Meadow, the longest project I've ever like worked on, I don't actually have any songs to do that. Like that, hilariously, that project is like soundless in my head. Of course, it has a soundtrack now, but for a long time, it was just like, I don't know what this ought to sound like.
That's awesome that you affiliate it with the vibe. Like I do that so much to where
Yeah.
I was asking about, recording first, because many of the projects I've worked on, I've really sat down and we have the basic idea of what the game's going to be. But then I just record 5, 6, 10 tracks, as many as I can. And then I utilize that to draw the art and be in that same vibe. And then again, now I listen to those albums and they just bring me right back to the time I was building that game.
Yeah.
So around like 2012 or 2013, when I first started messing with Unity, I was like really bad at it. I was making stuff that I wasn't going to finish, And at that point, I definitely wrote a song and then made a game based on that song.
Yeah.
And the song is in the game. And the game, nothing ever happened with the game. I never released it. There's like one video of it that's not even on YouTube. But that song still has the title of the game, and I still have the song up on my SoundCloud.
Yeah.
So that's
right.
Yeah.
One thing I also noticed too is like music wise, I always am trying to. I want to write this vibe, this certain sound. And when there's a point after about 2 or 3 songs writing in that vibe where you kind of like sink in and you're just kind of like you were talking about on autopilot, and songs are just like flowing and you're not in a writer's block basically. And I just want to keep writing, but because I don't want it to run out. Because sometimes when you write like a whole bunch of tracks for a game, I have to like pull some out because some of them just didn't hit the vibe right. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like they gotta go, and yeah, it's weird.
It's better to have like more colors on your palette than you actually use in the piece. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and then I have this SoundCloud channel where I literally just throw random stuff that I've pulled out of other soundtracks in there, and I just throw it in this one playlist.
Yeah.
Away it goes to rot
cool.
or whatever. But I wrote 100 songs in a year was my record. That's how I learned how to like use DAWs and interfaces
That's
and
impressive.
mics. And so I would wake up every single day and I would spend 4 hours writing a whole song, no vocals, all programmed. I'm not playing live drums, right? I'm not using a microphone. But yeah, 100 songs in 365 days. Were they all good?
And it's crazy.
No, but
well, I mean, the music is not always going to be good, anyways. That's even some of the greats out there have written some crap songs, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier. You need a wake of unfinished or scrapped projects behind you,
totally,
in order to have some good ones.
And
but yeah, I was in the same boat where I didn't do 100 in a year or anything like that, but I was slowly getting faster, and now I'm to the point where I can write a song in 30 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and then it's all.
But I just don't do it that often.
Yeah, I usually try to take like 2 or 3 hours on a song and really mix it up if it's going to be good. But the one thing about that year, though, was after that year of doing that, I was so much better at those programs.
Yeah, that's the whole point, I think.
Yeah, it's all about the workflow, right? If I go into a new engine, I'm lost. If I go into Godot, I'm like, what am I doing? I got to look up videos. I'm gonna work so slow. But because I have like 9,000 hours in Game Maker Studio, I just go in there and it just flows. It just happens. That's how I could build a game in 6 hours.
About Godot. I would love to learn Godot, but it's so hard to step away from Unity when you know that you can just like get that flow real quick.
Yeah, bam, bam. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and Godot is a good engine. I mean, I've worked in there. I don't mind it. It's just different.
But on the fact of or the point you made about producing lots of music over a shorter period of time, it reminds me of when I was in art school, like freshman year, and we were doing gesture drawings where we had a live model, and they would do 15-second poses.
Oh god.
Right, or 30-second poses, or 1 minute poses, and we were like working ourselves down to 15-second poses, and we would get this big thick 18 by 24 pad of newsprint paper, like the cheapest of the cheap paper.
Yeah, and just
and
draw
we'd
with a
use like
pencil.
a Conte crayon even. So
Oh,
and
jeez.
he showed us this technique to use the Conte crayon on its side. We'd break it in half and use half a Conte crayon on its side and use your whole arm to draw, not just your wrist, but the whole arm.
whole arm
Because we're on an
moving.
18 by 24 pad, right? So it's a pretty big pad of
So you're
paper.
just like
and yeah, we
circling their face as fast as you can and getting the nose and the eye lines and all that stuff, right?
It's all about the gestures, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting the weight and the movement, and then before you know it, they're already in another pose. You grab your page and you go to the next one and you do that. We went through a whole notepad of it, and then I went through and we started doing the back side of it. Some people bought another pad. I just bought it. I just used the back side.
Wow, that's
right?
crazy.
Because you just kind of throw that stuff away anyways. Actually, I still have it, which is kind of funny. But yeah, that's how we got good at art school.
Do you
And so I think there's a lot of
repetition.
like today there's like what repetition is huge. Yeah. But today there's PewDiePie, right?
Yeah.
Who recently started doing art, and he's like, oh, I've got this PewDiePie style of doing a drawing every day. It's like, yeah, he didn't make that.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
That's been how you do it forever.
Oh yeah, you see those musicians who are like, we made it. We all did a track in an hour. Let's listen to it. And it's got like 200,000 views, and I'm like, man, that happens like 5 times a day on my website. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's marketing at that point.
Yeah. Do you, Rick? Do you do more? I guess I call it real art instead of digital art, physical art as
Traditional.
well. Yeah, traditional.
You know, I have a background in traditional art, but honestly, I don't do that much. You know what? You know what's cool though? I got all of my clay from college still, and I'm actually like gearing up to do like sculpting streams.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's part of my plan. Yeah.
My daughter is really into art,
so cool.
and so physical art and stuff. She's drawing and shading. She's 12 and she crushes me. You know, absolutely crushes my skills in art. She doesn't.
Some of these up and coming new kids, they're like
crazy.
They got some talent.
So I bought her
when
one
I was
of those,
12, I was struggled, you know.
I bought her one of those, an iPad with the pencil, the Apple Pencil, and she just flourished, man. She just went.
Oh, cool.
You know, she learned layers.
Because I feel like that's where
right?
Everything's going that way.
And so now she knows how to
it's
add
not
different
easy
layers and can move them around and combine them and give me a picture with background or no background. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you.
You know, I watch a lot of art streams on Twitch, and one of the streamers I watch, Peanut Pump is her name. She's got a really awesome stream. But recently she had what they call a magma board, right? It's a magma is the website, and it's like a whiteboarding site, but it's made more for artists. Like it has artist tools on there, kind of like Photoshop-esque.
Right.
But yeah, it was so cool. She had all of her community just drawing on a magma board, like on the side of her stream. And like my mind was just blown because it's like a draw together.
I like that
thing.
feature.
Right.
I'm probably going to steal that at some point.
You should, because that's really.
I would love
really cool.
to let
I was very
the people watching just show their creativity, because that's my favorite part of meeting new people is seeing. Like, there's a reason why most of the new friends I've made over the last like 67 years have been devs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, we just start rapping and start chatting about anything, music. I know you're a big Muse fan, and like it's just like I know you through game development.
Don't bring up Muse.
I've never met you.
It's not a safe topic to bring up with me because I go on tangents. I've like derailed entire streams because someone has like brought up Muse. So, but
like,
I am
1996.
yeah.
Like go back old school days. Oh man. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, like what you're talking about, just like being into art and stuff, and it's great to see my daughter doing a lot of that. So I get to work with clay, and I get to work with paints. We have tons of paints here. And
clay's the bomb.
And it's a lot of fun, and so we're always kind of doing art projects. We got really into cardboard. We've been saving cardboard, and you can like cut with a razor, you just kind of cut one side and then it bends real nicely. She was like learning this in school, so we're like building all this crazy houses and yeah, just all sorts of weird stuff. But it's great to stay just
Yeah.
creative and doing
Very
that.
cool.
Yeah, that's what
often.
they don't talk about. The parents always complain about having to do their kid's science project, but when it actually comes time, they're like, "Fuck yeah, I want to do a science project."
Yeah. Well, and I just didn't like.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to make art for a game. You know, I'd love for
That would
her to
be
see
cool.
that whole experience and understand. You know, I drew like 500 different sprites for the Hunter's Path. It was not a small amount of art. It's a ton, and it has to be animated.
You know what would
right?
be really cool for the position
I
you're
see
in
a lot of projects like that.
is if you started the game now, including like
Yeah.
the game starts with the drawings and art she's making now. And
Oh, I know,
as
and then
she
it-
gives
and
you
it
like better
continues.
art as she grows, you just like start evolving the art in the game.
The game. Oh man, that is actually a really good idea.
That's a really good idea. Yeah.
It would be the coolest type of
But one
keepsake.
thing I would say is that you got to make sure that you're not like exploiting, right? Because this is your own kid you're talking about, and you don't want them to just be a marketing tool. You know, obviously
Yeah.
they're more than that to you, but you don't want it to appear that way either.
It's all about
Because I see some
experiences.
projects where
Yeah.
I see some projects where it almost ends up looking that way. It's like, hey everyone, you should check out my project because I made it with my kid, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I think it's how you present it. For me, I didn't even look at it from that point of view. I was more looking at it as it's like it's such a good memory to have, and it's such a cool thing. Like you
Yeah.
see people who do like someone who took 100, like took pictures every day for like 6 years, and you get to see this
Yeah.
like whole memory album of when they were small to when they were big. Like that's a big reason
Seen
why
some of
I
that.
do like my content still. Like in one degree it's fun, but the whole reason why Twitch putting on this 100-hour limit to highlights was so big for me is because I want my kids to see their dad from when he was 15 to see, till he was in his 30s. I like that's such a rare thing for someone to have
Agree.
once you're gone.
That is something about being like a streamer, being on camera and doing tons of hours of content that you have tons of hours of content, right? That are saved there forever. Or so you thought.
So you thought, yeah.
Until recently. Hey, Zoom did the same thing to me at work, so
That was a huge
all my
panic
videos are
for
gone.
me. I'm still
Bye-bye.
working on
Like-
fixing it.
Yeah, nightmare fuel. I've been following along with what's been going there. It's no fun, but
I don't want to derail the conversation at all, but it is a pretty big deal. Speedrun community's freaking out.
right.
I was
Yeah, 'cause
shocked I only
then
had
those
33
guys-
hours of content. I don't understand how that's possible, but that's what the thing tells me.
It sounds like they just don't like do highlights because it automatically deletes your VODs after, I think, 3 months or something.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
90 days now? Yeah. Yeah, they're tired of storing your data, apparently.
Oh, I didn't even realize they were doing that. That makes sense.
Yeah, one of
Well, you guys were
the
talking about-
largest
I've been putting it on
owners of
YouTube.
server centers in the world stressed out about it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. Well, you guys were talking about kids and stuff. I've always used my kids. Like, I let my kids, like, you remember Evidence of Life, the old school one, Mike?
Yeah.
My son's voice is the big boss at the end.
But I think you
I
also
let him
told me
voice the
that
character.
you ended up doing co-op in Turin purely because,
of my daughter.
yeah, your daughter.
My daughter was like, I want to play as the dog. And so then I was like, yeah, we should play as the dog. And so then we implemented couch co-op so that I could play.
So I agree,
with
Rick.
my daughter.
There are, in my opinion, scumbags out there who will use their kids as a marketing tool. But I don't think it's
Yeah,
as simple as that. I think it's a lot more complex.
Well, yeah, not even scumbags. Just sometimes it rubs me the
I mean,
wrong
I
way
call them
when
scumbags
I see their marketing stuff.
because
Yeah.
those are your kids, man. I mean, I nowadays, after knowing what I know, I don't even want my kids to be on social media. So forcing them to
Pretty
be
much,
on social
yeah.
media is like, I don't know. It feels scummy to me.
I'm too scared to have kids. I just won't.
Yeah, I was too scared too. And then, damn it, it happened.
That should be a good one.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it was a good time. Nice
Do
meeting
you
you.
want to like say anything else before you leave about your projects or anything like that, or just everyone go check out Low Blast?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just realized what time it is and I'm like behind on something. So I gotta
Oh, cool. Well, I appreciate hanging
thanks for
out,
having
and,
me. Had a good
have
time.
a great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to chat with you, man.
Awesome.
Great to meet you.
You too.
Take care.
Yep. Later.
Yeah, so I was actually going to bring up Skate Cat. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this. It's an NES game made by a 10-year-old kid.
Skate Cat.
That's Skate Cat. Yeah, it's not. It's actually not terrible either. But yeah, I'm sure Langle's heard of it, but he just dropped off. But yeah, the developer's dad is like a well-known NES developer. I say well-known, but now I'm having trouble remembering who his dad is.
Dale Coop.
Dale Coop, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That okay. Yeah. So
Dale
it is.
Coop's
It's old school. Kind of has a Mega Man vibe of like side scroller size wise. Yeah.
This
Cool.
is
It's
interesting.
like
to
that,
me
except it's got like endless runner
for our
vibes.
last
Ah, okay.
conversation because at nowhere on the Steam page does he mention it was made by a 10-year-old.
That's
Exactly,
crazy.
and that was kind of the point that I'm bringing up. Is that it's in a way it's done well. The kid was passionate about it. It wasn't like a dad forcing his son to make a game because hey, if you make it, it's gonna sell. If
Yeah.
I make it, it
No
won't
one
sell, kind of
cares.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not a scumbag.
Yeah.
Not a scumbag.
Not a scumbag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I'm a very plain person, man. I don't got a lot
Yeah.
of...
Well, I just want my kids to have those experiences, right? If they want to have them. I'm a weird dad like that. Like I don't like forced experiences. I don't like the dad who's just like, you're gonna play basketball and you're gonna be the best.
Sit
And the
down
kid's
and
like,
code right friggin' now. If I don't see 20 if
Yeah,
statements in
yeah.
the next 4 hours, I'm grounding
scream
you.
it in. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that because I'm older, and so like all my friends have had kids, and they've all raised their kids differently, and it's all about experiences, and art is experiences, right? And music and art, all that stuff's combined, and just your kind of life experiences and being able to like do things. So the more you cut around with cardboard, the better you get at it. The more you pixel art and Ace Bright, I think that's how you say it. The better you get at it, right? Like, and that's kind of like, that's kind of how I have raised my kids. And what's funny about it is one got really into it and the other has no interest, and I would never force them, you know.
Although
like,
it's
do
like
anything
silently
artistic.
heartbreaking.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Like, I want you,
He's-
I made you to love what I love. Why do you not love what
Yeah.
I love?
I like that.
Another reason why I'm afraid to have kids.
Yeah. It's nice to see him. He's more
Maybe
like
like
my
a
wife.
football player
Exactly,
boxer.
that's what I think. Rick.
Exactly.
Oh,
I know,
you
I'm
want
like a
to
metalhead
play
and
football.
stuff, and was in a signed metal band touring, and my son only listens to hip hop. That's it. That's like, I think that's how it works. But yeah, having
It's
children is
because
pretty-
you listen to metal. You realize that, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
did it to him.
I did it.
If
He
you
was like-
listened to hip hop, he would listen to
He would
metal. You
listen to
should have made
metal.
the switch as soon as
Yeah,
he
you
was born.
I
should've.
should have just listened to what my parents listened to. Apparently, that forces
There
you
you
to be
go.
a metalhead.
You know, metalheads have
pretty
a
good
lot of
taste in
crossover
music.
with classical music lovers.
Right. That's what I
believe it.
love.
I love classical music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played violin in school and learned a bunch of. I loved Bach. He was always my favorite. Bach's,
Rachmaninoff is always someone I
I think-
bring up because when you watch someone play, like, I can't remember what song it is. It's in one of his nocturnes. They use 2 hands, but he still holds the record for the largest span from the tip of his pinky to his thumb. He had a 12-inch span
That's insane.
between his pinky and his thumb. So he used
What
to
do I
play
got?
the
I literally
chord
have a.
with
I literally have
one
this here.
hand. And
Holy
Just
shit!
like
when you
a
watch them do a cover of his music, they use 2.
You said it was 12 and a half inches?
12.
Gosh. Dude, I'm like,
So Beethoven and
8
everyone was
3/4.
writing these like
that's
fuck you
a massive
songs.
hand.
Every classical musician had a fuck you song that was something only they
Right.
could play. So they made these really complex pieces.
That's
but
amazing.
him, he would just like stretch his hand out and do it. And that's like his
Oh,
fuck
that's
you
hilarious.
song. But I always bring him up. But
What did he play? He played a violin?
he played piano.
Oh, piano and doing the long stretches. Yeah.
So it was, and I got into classical music because Muse has a lot of classical inspirations in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I've seen studies where they've found that metalheads, like heavy metalheads, actually have a ton of crossover and enjoyment in classical music. because metal also can be very technical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. And that's what I was talking about, like those old video game songs sounding like metal, right? All the old chiptune stuff that's like I'm trying to think of one. I think Contra had a bunch that were like really upbeat and fast, and it basically is a metal song.
And a lot of that was like arpeggios.
12 inches is crazy. I'm still measuring my finger spread here. I've got a 8.5 by 11, and I can beat the 8.5, but I can't imagine beating the 11. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
Yeah.
So he had a foot long span between the tip of his pinky and the tip of his thumb when he would be playing.
That's just crazy.
That is
Crazy.
Was he like 7 foot tall? I mean, I met some 7 foot tall people that have that. That's just crazy to me. I'm pretty tall too. I have pretty giant hands, but I guess I don't. I don't have 12-inch hands. That's nuts. Interesting.
You got me like curious now. I don't know.
You have to
how
look.
tall
You
he
gotta.
was.
I don't know. It might not even be documented.
Hey, fellas, I got to take off, but great chat. Thank you for having me. A lot of fun.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should check out MeadowGB, and take a look at your Twitter and Blue Sky content, because you're posting N64 dev.
Yeah. We'll have more updates on Runic and more things to come. More things to come. Anyhow, I will talk to you later. Have a great rest of the day.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining.
Great chatting, man.
This has been a pretty cool experience being on. I mean, I've never done a podcast before, and I was exceptionally nervous about this one because I really didn't feel like I belonged in this one. But
you absolutely did, man.
After what's happened so far in the podcast, I feel a lot more in tune with. I mean, I do know a lot about kind of what we've talked about, even though I'm not.
Oh, absolutely.
Pretty close though, and in ways you're an aspiring dev, because I've heard you talk about wanting to do game development numerous times now.
Yeah.
And you have game ideas, you know.
Beatsmith.
You're literally one step away from becoming a dev.
I'm just not ready to take the plunge yet.
All you need to do is download the software and start tinkering, and then you're a dev.
I'm probably going to be going with
takes.
Godot when I do it.
It's so much easier than that. All you have to do is write me 3 chords, and I put your song in a video game, and now you're a game dev.
Yep,
that's it. You're done. Yeah, you don't even have to do some people forget that you don't have to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a good learning experience to be a solo dev. Absolutely.
I would
especially
like to
launch a game.
A solo dev in a perfect world.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And I feel like it's one of those things where even like I feel like you're a shit friend if you have a game dev friend and you ask them to do something for you. I would never ask any of the devs that I wanted like to do something for me. And I know how much time it would take me to learn all of it. But at that point, I would want to do it all myself.
See, that's why you just do like a game jam and like basically we'd have 2 weeks to make a game. It's not some big, huge scope thing. It's not the next big thing we're trying to build.
But I want to make rhythm games. And that's the thing.
Yeah,
is
rhythm games would be cool. Like you can just
I don't think they work in a game jam because you could spend 2 weeks making the music.
Well, you could just make a simple one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to cut down your scope, and that's a huge thing to learn. It's one of the harder things to learn in game development. So I get it that it won't come easy or natural to you, but that's what game jams are all about.
Yeah, the hardest part is trying to do too big of a project first. You gotta make something simple like box walk across a screen, and you have to jump over some holes.
That is one like invisible standard I know I didn't ever make a game, but that was one thing that I decided when I was younger was any game I do make needs to be fun with shapes.
with shapes.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
your main character
yeah,
needs to be a rectangle, and
Okay,
everything
yeah,
else is
yeah, I
very
love that,
basic
yeah.
shapes. But if a game is fun, like I brought it up before, but if you took Vampire Survivors and your character was a rectangle and all the enemies were a circle, and then all of your attacks were just different colored circles, that game would
Right.
still be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that to me
Dude,
is
the
Programmer
how
art, you
I
call it.
always determined how I would make a game. If it's fun with base shapes, then you can add in everything else on top of it.
My favorite games that I've ever made. I mean, I made a bunch. Right? I put them on Steam. My favorite games was with this dude Ed, who now has removed himself from the internet. Basically, he's on socials. He's nowhere. I have one place
I
I can
tried to get him on the
hold of him.
podcast.
Ed has one of the best
You talking
YouTube
to Ed
channels
Atkins?
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
good friends with
making
Ed.
games with him, we would do the Wrecked Toolkit Jam or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. Game
Right.
Breakers Toolkit. And basically,
remember,
it was make the worst game possible. So I just drew the shittiest art. I made the most horrible sounds you could ever make, and I did it in about 20 minutes, right? And
It was hilarious.
And the games were amazing, and so all the mechanics were like you'd press up and you'd go right, or it would just be choosing random things when you're pressing up, right? Like the idea was to program the worst possible thing, and Ed could do that. He could do that magically.
Ed has, I don't know if you've watched his YouTube videos.
Oh, it's subscriber notifications on,
he makes some of the most
see the
interesting,
garbage can.
cool videos that I've ever seen. The biggest thing for me is he made a video on slime volleyball.
Oh yeah.
And slime volleyball is a game that I grew up playing every single day. And
exactly.
When he had the reveal that he got a hold of the devs and got like an unreleased build of it to play it,
right?
I was like blowing up in my seat. Ed is a gaming genius, in my opinion, because he doesn't look at games how we do. But not just that, it's a competent take on these broken, busted games that I would download, I'd open, I'd be like, fuck this, close it, uninstall it, forget it. He will like beat it 20 times and love every second of it. He's a brilliant mind.
I know,
and we haven't even brought up Other Minds, right?
No, we never even brought up Other Minds. I loved Other Minds. I played
Other Minds was very difficult.
I did a lot of testing for Other
Minds.
Did you?
But it was great. Yeah. I couldn't beat that boss with the like the mad scientist.
Yeah, the balls or the lasers that would shoot out at you at different layers. Yeah, that is a tough one.
I couldn't.
But one thing I respect about Ed,
yeah, I had a blast testing.
Is I talked to him about that boss fight, and he respectfully told me it's as difficult as it should be. So
it's as difficult as it should be.
Pretty much like I'm not changing anything about it. He actually made it harder from when I was testing it.
Yeah.
And I love that uncompromising kind of, like, he had a vision for exactly what that was supposed to be. And he did it. But I know the big thing for him is the Easter eggs. He planted a shit ton of Easter eggs in that game. And they are, even for me, like, ridiculous to find.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard.
I didn't find any of them, I don't think.
It's like I should contact him and tell him I want to put it on Steam. I just want people to experience that game.
Yeah, but I think it's...
I did 4 songs on that album, or on that game.
I hope Ed's doing well.
Oh, really?
I did know that, actually.
Yeah, I hope so, too. That.
And I helped him make the logo that's like the main logo, or whatever.
He still messages me every now and then, so I should just pop him a quick message, ask him how he's doing.
Yeah.
So what happened with Other Minds? Did he decide to stop developing it, or what happened?
Yeah,
it's finished. Yeah, but did he not release it?
It's on itch only.
It's on itch only.
He never went.
But it's done.
Yeah, it's completed.
It's done as in he's
I have
completed.
never got a sense from Ed that he even gives a fuck if his games are ever seen. Like, I think he genuinely is just making these games for him.
He wanted them to. I think that, like, I don't want to put words in his mouth because it's a podcast, but he's such a great guy, and he was a huge influence to me, right? And like I think he did, but it's a tough business out here, right? You can spend years making a game and release it, and it's just crickets.
Yeah.
You know, and that it's happened to me
It's
before.
a hard
it's
pill to swallow for anybody.
It's almost expected.
It's all it's pretty much.
But you don't believe it is going to be.
Everything that
You
he
always
does
hope
is great.
that it's not going to be.
Yep.
He puts his heart and soul into things, and then it doesn't go viral or whatever. But you know, I think it was a smart move for him. He ditched all his socials and like was just trying to live life. I'm like, that's good, man. It's never a bad choice.
Good, but
right? There's a lot of stress.
That is something I've actually I think I recently talked to Rick about this, where I obviously wanted to grow making my content, but
of course,
ever since I started back in 2004, 2005, I've never grown. So there was this period I went through where first I went through like, is there something wrong with me? And then I started like trying to follow trends, and I hated it because I don't like doing that. And I get where he's coming from, but and as sad as it sounds, there comes a part where you just kind of, if you love it, keep doing it. And you are just going to have to accept that this is what's happened. This is the reality. You haven't grown. No one is really watching your stuff, but you got to still love it to keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I've watched, I agree with you, man. I've watched, my followership and all that just drop. It happens, right? You come out with a bunch of games, you do the thing, and then, and I'm guilty of the same thing. When I go look through Steam, I see a game and I'm like, nah, I'm skipping that one, right? And so it's a tough world out there, and you feel chewed up and spit out a bunch. And
that's where I think you got to fall into. You just love creating it. It's fun for you. And honestly, no one can deny that making this stuff is therapeutic.
Oh,
like
100%
anything you make, it's so much for you, and you put so much of yourself into it. And then it's weird that in the end, we end up focusing on what other people will think about it. You walk through your entire day not caring what other people are going to think about you for the majority of it. And then you make something, and all you do is worry what other people are going to think of it. So I don't think we should stop making things because we're not getting popular. I wanted that popularity so bad. Yeah, but sometimes it takes people a long time to realize that at the end, it's not about being popular. For a lot of people, it is. And once they realize that, they'll ditch. But for the people that continue, popular and rich, it was never about being popular. Like the whole reason any of my content exists, my best friend Paul, when I was a kid, he would come over, sit beside me, and watch me play games. And every time I asked him, like, man, this is 2-player. Do you want to play? He's like, no, I just want to watch. And he would have a friggin' blast watching me play through these games. So that's the whole reason why I started making content in the first place, was now I can do that same thing for other people. But because
you were pre-Twitch, right? You were pre-YouTube.
Yeah, I started on Google Video when that was in 2004. Insane. And then I went to Justin TV for my first streaming experience. And I had like a camcorder propped up on a pile of socks to face my CRT screen.
Oh, amazing.
And
so you were filming the television to stream that.
Yeah, I was just filming the TV. And
no video capture.
I've gone through probably 2 or 3 times that phase of nobody fucking likes me.
Oh man, that's like every 4 months for me. Like I'm over it.
And you eventually do settle in this spot where you're like, I love what I do. Like I love doing this. But the recent Twitch thing scared the shit out of me, because it's like, I love doing this, but I love having a record of it, and not having a record of it makes it pointless to me.
Right. No, I understand that as well. Yeah, that's
the day I got the notice about Twitch's new 100-hour limit on highlights. I ran out and bought a 5 terabyte hard drive. I spent a week downloading all of my VODs from Twitch. And now I'm sitting on
crazy.
about 4 days of uploading them to YouTube. We still have 954 videos to do.
That's so epic that you did that though. Like I'd have been like, fuck this.
Well, I was
Like,
doing it so that my kids could like see me get older. So if it's
that's
gone,
amazing that you did that.
I can't do that.
I'm so lazy.
I panicked, dude. When I got that notice, I cried.
Yeah, you have spent so much time. That's like before I met my wife. That was 21 years ago.
Yeah, it's and like for
2004.
me,
Yeah,
it's
that's a long
when
time.
I'm 15.
That was before I had ever. Well, I had built a game when I was younger, but yeah, I wasn't doing anything computer wise
So
in 04.
that was it was a scary thing for me to think that all of this effort I put in for my reasons was going to be gone and
Right.
useless. But I think that I always wonder if that happens to game devs too, where something happens, like you see these games that get pulled from Steam, or you see something random. Like I've seen legal naming disputes that got a game
Right.
pulled from Steam. Like you put all this work in, and then it gets pulled for something unrelated to all this effort you put in.
Yeah.
So you guys are indie devs. I just want to know, do you have any favorite indie devs that you've found? Like for me, I mentioned earlier the dev team behind like Dead Seeding and Lethal Company. But do you guys have any devs that you really follow?
I follow lots and lots of devs.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, I have some favorite games that are from small teams for sure. I love Necess. I find that to be now a bit more popular, and they had a recent free weekend, and they had thousands of players.
Dude, the biggest thing for that game is they released an update that was an entire graphical overhaul for the entire game.
Yeah, absolutely. But they came out in 2019. That's the same year that Turin came out. So they're still working on it, right? Like they're still going. They're still going. And I love to see them get a little bit of success. That makes me happy. But you got to remember they've had years of 10 players, 5 players, years of it. And then they had thousands one weekend. So it's nice to see a success story, right? Like where if you keep at your dream, like it can happen. Because I find myself giving up, a lot and stuff like that, just trying to like stay more realistic about it. But it's good to see them. I also follow a guy named what is it, Schmidt Studios.
I will say I don't like to hear you feel like giving up, because you're one of the best indie devs that I've gotten to meet.
I always go through waves and phases. Like one moment I'm not into doing it and think it's going to fail, and then the next moment I'm like, I'm so excited and ready to do this. I go through a lot of waves like that, right? And development comes in waves too, right? And we're a 2-person team, so like he'll be vibing, I'm not vibing, I'll be vibing, he's vibing, we're both vibing together, then we're both not vibing. Like it kind of goes every which way. But in the end of it, like
teams are like bands a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Not everybody's always feeling good or in a good place, like
or even has the time.
Sometimes
time just doesn't line up.
And so like the reason that we're able to achieve what we're able to achieve is just because there is no timeline, and everybody's allowed to be human, right? Some days you don't want to do stuff, other days you get so much done, and we just go with the flow that way, right? And it's nice to hear Mike, you say that we do well. I mean, we make cool worlds. We try really hard in the game. We try to make good things. but we don't worry too much about its popularity or its success, and maybe that's a bad thing. But to me, it helps my brain not break. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. I know what you mean.
yeah, it's like I'm in the same boat as you, right? I put 100,000 hours into game development in the last 10 years. It feels like I don't even know how many hours. And financial reward was nothing, but knowledge gained
Yeah, that's
was
the big one. You can keep making
yeah,
better stuff. And that was actually what I was going to say was it wasn't the big thing to me for Hunter's Path was I watched you go from making two of the same type of game to making something completely different, but just as good, if not better, and like fucking 16 times more detailed. And it
16 times more. Oh, yeah.
I mean, think
And
about it. Like you had
Just
mining
works.
and gathering. That was what you had
It did.
but then Hunter's Path, you got animals that react different. But not even that. The setting's completely different. This is a survival game, grounded survival game compared to the space games you've done. And what blew me away was just how well you could adapt to making something completely different and for it to still be as good. Like it reminds me of the devs for Risk of Rain, going from Risk of Rain 1 to Risk of Rain 2. It's a completely different playing field, and they nailed it. And that was what really drew me to Hunter's Path, was it's a completely different playing field, and you nailed it.
Yeah, it's a good survival game. It does what it's supposed to. It doesn't have multiplayer, so that's going to be a turn off, right? You have to you always look as a developer when you're finishing a project, because we're basically done with it, just so you know. Like, there's not much more that we have left to do on the game. And so then, we're at the very end. We're just checking the check boxes, right? Has it got controller support? Check. It's got multiplayer? No checkbox there, right? Like, has it got cloud saves? Yeah. Did we do the Steam Deck compatibility? We haven't yet. It's not as good on a controller. Like, we're realistic to ourselves, right? Like, we've tested
it. It works fine on the Steam Deck. You're talking about
the Hunter's
which one?
Path.
Hunter's Path or it worked fine on my Steam Deck. I thought the part that's a little bit difficult is reading the small text.
Yeah, absolutely. Small text and so like the menu and stuff. It's not as arcade, right?
I do have one question for PC players.
Yeah.
Can we move yet if we have our mouse over the inventory?
No, you can't move yet, but when you aim, we actually implemented a feature that holds the mouse just to the player frame. So you can't go into the menu when you're aiming.
I put that in my report.
No, that was a huge thing for us to fix. Like I was saying, the things that you provided us they mean things.
I used to try and position myself to the animal could only really be on my right, because I wouldn't run into the issue as much going to my right for some reason of hitting a menu and being locked out of moving my aimer. It's depressing, but I didn't realize till like 6 hours after I was playing the game that I could even look outside my initial box with the right click.
Right. You were like, hey, it'd be cool if you had a chopping block where you could make firewood that would burn longer.
Yeah, dude, burning logs
That was
sucks.
the feedback that you gave me. So we implemented that exact thing, except for that a chopping block also makes planks for building stuff.
That's crazy. And I never expected you guys to go that far. Like,
no, but get this, stuff. Like then spawned, because we added that one thing, into drying racks, compost, and then food expiration to make rotten food that can go into compost.
So it sounds like you boosted farming.
Farming is harder now because you have to compost for soil, and soil is like ammo for the shovel. So you have to produce soil before you can farm with the shovel. So yeah, we slowed the game down, right?
I think you had to, yeah.
Yeah. You could just like get at the end and have all your weapons.
You could stay up for 3 days
pretty quickly. Yeah. And we extended the day. It was a 5-minute day, and now it's 10. It feels way better. And then we put in a rake that allows you to put paths down, so you can like.
Did you add a watering can?
There's a watering can for your stuff. We made we added water collectors that you can set out and they fill up with rain.
Dude, that's nuts. Rains. Honestly, for me, I love farming in games, and it killed me.
Yeah.
As soon as I learned I had to fill up an individual can for farming, I did a big farm once, and then I never touched it again because it was a nightmare.
Never again. Oh yeah, absolutely needed a watering can. Yeah, and it's easy to make early game,
but it makes it more. Like, I'm just so pumped that we have the planks now, because being able to burn, or just even the firewood slices, are so important. It just makes a tree feel insignificant. Like anything you gather from a tree, you're just going to be using to fuel a fire. So
right now it's to build things. Now it's to build chairs. But I never expected
you to even add a furniture bench. That's nuts. Like you guys, and this is the same way you were with Evidence of Life and Terrain.
We go hard, man.
You go friggin' hard, man. And not just that, it's not lazy. Like it's awesome. You always kill it.
We do lots of stuff. Yeah. We changed the way fishing worked. Fishing was my least favorite part when we released the demo.
You just tossed it in.
Yeah, you just put it in there. So now you got to find these little fish. They're little shadows, and they're randomly put on the lakes, and you actually have to go cast to that little spot.
That makes sense to me, especially for the type of game it is.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch in there. We added a bunch of effects. We juiced the game a little bit. We added the leaves falling from the trees when you cut them, and the bushes, a little stuff flies around. You add those little effects. The little sparks when you hit the stone with the pickaxe, a metal pickaxe would spark. So we added little sparks.
So do you have a tentative release date?
I don't really. I think it's set because in Steam you just have to set it to a date. I think it's set for the end of this month, but I figure I don't know, we'll probably talk about it. Maybe I'll release it for my birthday. It's at the end of April. I don't know. It's pretty close. Basically, all we're doing right now is finishing up the scenarios, because there's a bunch of scenarios that are in there. There's a creative mode, a hardcore survival mode, and a regular survival mode. And then there's this cabin life that's just a cabin that you get that's all smashed in with woods. You got to clear it all and just kind of live there. And then there's a couple more story-driven, multiple task style scenarios. One where you go on this hunting adventure through all these different places, and another one where you have this big farm already laid out for you.
Reminds me of The Long Dark.
Farm it. Yeah, it has a bunch of scenarios like that, right? Yeah, absolutely. So we just have to finish a couple more of those scenarios. Most of that stuff's done. And
cool.
Seal it up and pick a date, and then do some marketing, and we're not going to wait for the lucky 7,000 wish lists. We don't do that.
It's hard to get.
Yeah, we just we did our thing. We achieved the goal that we tried from Next Fest, which was we wanted to double our wish lists.
That's awesome.
That's what we did. Yeah, that's good.
Hell yeah.
It did what it's supposed to do. And and then we'll release, and it'll be great. It'll be fun. And then we'll probably update it for a little bit, I would guess.
Nice.
Oh, look at this kitty. All right, well, I should probably go.
It's getting kind of late.
Do some stuff with. I got to go drive around, and my son came home sick today, so.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys both hanging out and chatting.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, no problem.
You're the best. We'll see both of you guys in streams for sure.
Eventually.
Hell
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I see you in chat now. I'm gonna hang out with Rick. I'm what's up, dude?
Yeah, I know. I haven't been watching many streams recently. I've been watching download bars and upload bars.
That sounds horrible.
It sucks.
That's painful.
It is. One time I muscle memory turned off my PC and I corrupted a bunch of shit and I had to redo all of it because I feel so bad for this external hard drive because I bought it and it has been running since I plugged it into my damn PC. I'm stress testing it right now. But thank you so much for hanging out, man. It was so cool to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys are the best. Thanks for being part of this. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and as always, man, take your time getting it all together. I love that you do this. It's cool. Yeah, Eric, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Up with you.
Yeah.
Later, Mike.
See you guys.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you everyone for listening. Check out Just Wall's recent project on Steam, A Hunter's Path, Puke7's NES game Guntner, Sal's Game Boy game Meadow GB, also his N64 game Runic, and also be sure to check out the Electric Mindset stream on Twitch. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.